Chapter 424. Jingming pondered and was still worried that the disciple he had tricked with great difficulty would fly away. When he saw that Meng Xiaoshang was empty-handed and didn't have a suitable magic tool, he wanted to bribe her so that she wouldn't regret it in the future. Suddenly, he remembered that he had just taken a copper ring from the black cloud. So he took it out from his sleeve and said to Meng Xiaoshang, "Junior Marshal's sister, please help me take care of my disciple. Since he's young and doesn't have a plaything, I took a 5-cloud copper ring from Junior Marshal brother. Although it's not very powerful, its quality is very good. It's made of red copper and refined gold, and it's also a way to cultivate magic power. I made something for him. Junior Marshal's sister, please accept it." Although Jingming said that the 5-cloud copper ring was inconspicuous, it was actually a treasure of the unorthodox sect, and it was better than all the treasures Meng Xiaoshang had. Although it was a magic power of the unorthodox sect, it was one of the few magic treasures in the unorthodox sect that didn't harm people with insidious and evil methods. After practicing the 5-cloud forbidden technique, it would be very effective in protecting oneself. It was obtained by Junior Marshal brother Jingming, painstakingly collecting the essence of 5 clouds and refining it into an ancient copper ring. Jingming's Junior Marshal brother's Dao came from him, so he naturally knew about the 5-cloud copper ring's forbidden technique, so he imparted it to Meng Xiaoshang. He only hoped that He Sheng would remember his kindness for giving him this treasure and take the initiative. It was a pity that Jingming was an eminent monk with a good temperament, but he had to work hard for such a disciple. When Chenong saw this, he smiled and said, "Jingming is really generous. All right, He Sheng and I also have a good fate. Since Jingming is so generous, I can't be stingy." He took out the jade bottle that Jingming gave him, and inside it were all the elixirs he refined. Chenong divided it into 3 portions and gave one to Jingming and one to Meng Xiaoshang. "Since you and He Sheng came out of the same furnace, you guys also have a share of hard work, so I'll give you a portion. He Sheng was born with a good fate, so he doesn't need to take elixirs, as it'll be harmful. These elixirs are used to cure illnesses and save people, as well as to increase one's cultivation base and be reborn. If you guys travel the world and see someone with a serious illness or a poor family, you can save them. The rest can be used to enlighten those who are fated to do so, or to make friends with people of the same path." Meng Xiaoshang held onto those elixirs that she had begged for 100 times in the past. She had mixed feelings in her heart. To a rogue cultivator, Chunang's action was no different from a local tyrant giving away his property in Beijing's Second Ring Road. He was truly extravagant. If it wasn't for the fact that she was afraid that Chenong would take her as his disciple, Meng Xiaoshang would be very willing to get close to him. Chenong seemed to think it was not enough. He laughed and said, "Jingming monk is a lazy bone. He gave you the 5 cloud rings but forgot to erase the evil technique that his shitty was practicing. Even though it is also a proper unorthodox technique, you are a female immortal and a boy was born from a crane. How can you use this kind of black cloud and black fog to cover your body? Later, I'll help you refine it and create a 5-colored auspicious cloud that will give you the air of an immortal." Jingming monk was holding the bronze ring at the side. When he heard what Chenong said, he came back to his senses and smiled bitterly as he passed the bronze ring to Chun Ong. Chun Ong circulated the eternal bright spiritual fire and rolled it 3 times in the bronze ring to erase the magic power that he had refined. Then he released 5 black clouds and black fog to refine the clouds from formless to intangible, then to intangible, and again to intangible. After doing this for 3 times, the clouds returned to their white color. Then he took the opportunity to collect the special vitality in the 9 heaven strong wind and spent a day to refine 5 5-colored auspicious clouds before returning them to Meng Xiaoshang. He had already disturbed Meng Xiaoshang for too long. The 3 of them chatted and discussed some Dao techniques. Most of them were Chun Ong and Jingming's discussion, while Meng Xiaoshang listened quietly at the side. She had gained a lot. After all, she was a female Taoist priest, so Jingming and Chenong did not want to disturb her anymore, so they bade farewell. After returning to the Rosy Clouds Temple, Jingming practiced for a few days. Then He remembered that he had promised to build a few monasteries beside the Rosy Clouds Temple so that his disciple could have a place to stay. So, he informed Chenong and prepared to go down the mountain to beg for alms. Chenong was busy with the progress of his research and experiments. He persuaded him to stay for a while and let him go down the mountain when he saw that things were not going well. Recently, he did not dare to refine his magic power. Otherwise, under the 3,000 miles of Milky Way, there would not be a trace of water vapor in the surrounding hundreds of miles. It would be worse than a drought demon. So, he had to refine it a little. Although it was slow, it was still an improvement. Every day, besides refining the Taiyang real water and using the Taiyang real fire to cultivate the origin of the everlasting lamp flame, he studied the rules of this world. On the other side, the stupid teenager Wang Ming, who had stolen the treasure, began his legend of wandering in Jianghu under the guidance of the primordial treasure fate creation boy. Walking in Jinling City, Wang Ming looked at the grayish-white top of the pedestrians' heads. Occasionally, there would be some red airflow. He asked in his mind in a low voice, "Fate creation boy, is this the fate? You can be considered as half the host of the lotus seed of fate. Naturally, you have some magical powers. Yes, what you see is the fate that the lotus seed of fate has given you with the great magical power of the heaven sun's gaze at air. This world has been forged by the heavenly court. Everyone has fate and fate that determines their life destiny. The people on the street all have grayish-white fate. They work their whole lives and are like ants. The better ones have a trace of red chi. They have the fate to make a fortune in the officialdom. Look at your head." Wang Ming heard what it said and raised his head to look at himself. He only had 1 foot of red chi. He heard Fate Creation Boy say, 3 feet of red chi is the magistrate's fate. Because your family is rich, you, the only son, have 1 foot of red chi. However, compared to the green chi and purple chi of those who have a deep affinity to immortality, it is much worse. If you go to find the white sun diagram, you will be captured by the demons to practice magic. You will be seeking your own death. Wang Ming heard this and said fiercely, "How can this be? Am I not a 1 in a million cultivation genius? Why don't I have fate? Didn't the Taoist priest of Xixia Temple say that there was a divine light coming out of my head?" Fate Creation Boy sneered, "So that's how it is. Then who took away my fate?" Wang Ming shouted hysterically, "Do you think picking up the lotus seed of fate doesn't consume fate? To be able to pick me up, you have already exhausted all the fate of your ancestors and descendants. With me here, you are the most blessed person in the world. What else do you want?" Fate Creation Boy said. Only now did Wang Ming come to a sudden realization, and he said excitedly, "So that's how it is. I possess the lotus seed of fate, and I have more potential than anyone else in this world. So I exhausted my karmic luck. Karmic luck can restrain others, but it can't restrain me who possesses the lotus seed of fate. My life is up to me, not the heavens. I want to defy heaven and change my fate. Good spirit, this is the spirit that the master of Fate Creation Boy should have. That's right. As long as you listen to my guidance, you will definitely be able to defy heaven and change your fate. Not to mention the green chi and purple chi, even if it's 3,000 miles of purple chi. So what?" Fate Creation Boy encouraged him. Wang Ming made up his mind. Regardless of the strange looks from the people around him, he asked in his mind, "Then, Fate Creation Boy, how should I defy heaven and change my fate?" There are many ways for mortals to defy heaven and change their fate, such as feng shui, merit, reading books, and so on. But as the host of Fate Creation Boy, you don't have to think about anything else. You can go straight to the oldest and most terrifying path. Intercept fate, kill fate, end fate, and steal fate. Intercept the fate of the masses and offer it to you alone. Wang Ming's mind was in turmoil. He wished he could immediately seize other people's fate and replace them. Your uncle looked down on you, and Li Ning ignored you. Now, something has happened to them. This is the turning point of Li Ning's and the others' karmic luck. There's multi-armed bear Mary Tai, who has committed all sorts of evil deeds. If you kill him right in front of Li Ning, You'll be able to steal a portion of their karmic luck, and you'll also be able to steal all of Mary Ty's karmic luck. Even if only 1% of his karmic luck remains, it'll still increase your karmic luck. Chapter 425. Wang Ming's blood was boiling, and he almost could not control himself. He wanted to go to Mao Tai and kill him with one strike, and then show his head to Li Ning and the others. But Fate Creation Boy mocked him. If you go now, you will only be cut into two by Mao Tai, let alone surprise the three elites of Qilu. Don't forget, you're only a foot tall of red and white Qi, and your martial arts are only third-rate. You can't even defeat Mao Tai, who is a second-rate character in the underworld, let alone Li Ning, who has entered the peerless realm of the human world. Wang Ming had long been trained by Fate Creation Boy to know the soft side and the hard side. Hearing this, he asked politely, "Fate Creation Boy, what should I do?" "Don't forget the other two things you stole from Xixia Temple. Although I can't help you embark on the celestial path, it's not difficult for me to teach you how to use these two magic weapons." Fate Creation Boy, or rather, a thought of Chenong, told him in a cold voice. Right? Wang Ming suddenly had an idea and took out the other two things from his bosom. The soft sword, which was made of a strange material and shaped like an enlarged feather, was tied to his waist. After it was untied, Wang Ming used his strength to urge it, and it straightened up like a real long sword. Fate Creation Boy explained, this crane feather sword was made by a dissimulated person with the feather of a spiritual crane. It is as light as a feather in the hand, and its sharpness is even more extraordinary. Because of its strange material, the blade can be controlled by genuine Qi, and it can be bent at will. It can be said to be a unique magic weapon that combines the usage of a long sword, a soft sword, and a long whip. So strong? Wang Ming asked doubtfully, but I don't know the sword technique of the soft sword, so I can't use its power. Fate Creation Boy, or rather, Chenong, arranged such a weapon for him. Wang Ming had been possessed by the primordial treasure grandpa for a long time, so it was time for him to fulfill his responsibility as a lab rat. He should be a qualified lab rat for Chenong, using his soul and body to provide valuable experimental data. This will depend on the second magic treasure you stole. Fate Creation Boy said coldly. Wang Ming took out the black bead from his bosom. He looked at it, but could not find anything special about it. Then he heard Fate Creation Boy explain to him in a rigid and emotionless voice. This bead was originally a third-class magic weapon. It has a little effect. In your hands, even martial artists with strong, genuine Qi can't be bewitched. But it just so happens that it can help you practice a kind of immortal magic that I know. You mean the cultivation method? Wang Ming asked excitedly. Dream on. Fate Creation Boy sneered. Even if I take out the simplest incantation in my mind, your fate will immediately dry up, and you will be struck to death by 5 thunders. This is just a common magic used by the immortals in the upper world to play tricks on the mortals and play with the world. Ah! Wang Ming was a little disappointed and showed it on his face. However, he heard Fate Creation Boy snort coldly in his mind. The magic I'm talking about is the magic used by the celestial immortals and bodhisattvas. How can the magic of the mortal world compare to it? Put away your imagination about the mortal magic of curses and refining corpses. Although what I've taught you is the most common magic of the heaven realm, it is still an immortal magic. There are countless magic in the mortal world. After you practice it, you don't need to care about any martial arts. Even if you are a sword immortal, you will be tricked if you are not careful. This magic is called the art of releasing insects. Since ancient times, the art of insects and venomous insects have been equally famous. But I don't know why, in the world you live in, there's only the inheritance of the art of insects and no trace of the art of insects. This also means that you are the only person in this world who knows the inheritance of the art of insects. In Wang Ming's shallow impression, venomous insects were cultivated by poisonous and exotic insects. What was the difference? He asked doubtfully. What's the difference between the art of insects and the art of insects? Fate Creation Boy sneered and explained, The art of insects is a kind of existence refined by the art of insects and venomous insects. Insects, on the other hand, are a kind of impurities in the human body. They are also called spirit. They are not an existing substance, but something that exists in the form of qi. The most famous one should be the three corpses insects. The upper corpse is called pengju, a good treasure. The middle corpse is called pengzan, a good taste. The lower corpse is called pengjiao. Moreover, the upper corpse resides in the brain, the middle corpse resides in the bright hall, and the lower corpse resides in the stomach. The three corpses often reside in the human body. They are formed by impurities and impurities. They are invisible and intangible, but they really exist. The so-called art of releasing insects is to refine the impurities of all living beings. Worship the insects in your body and refine them into something like a magic weapon. When needed, you can release them to harm people. This art of releasing insects can get rid of all the impurities in the body, making the body clean and free from impurities. It has the effect of longevity and good health. Externally, it can arouse all kinds of insects in other people's bodies and control their senses, emotions, and even their thoughts. After you have mastered it, you don't have to worry about those who practice martial arts. The three corpses insects are so terrifying. Wang Ming exclaimed, "If I have mastered the three corpses insects, who in this world can stop me? How can it be so easy to cultivate the three corpses insects?" Fate Creation Boy poured cold water on him. "Don't forget, you are still a mortal's fate. It can't bear such a precious thing like the three corpses insects. If you can't change your fate, you can't do anything. You're born with a limited destiny. You can't cultivate the Tao or cultivate magic. With such a destiny, you'll be punished by the heavens if you practice magic. I taught you the insect release technique, which drained your destiny. If you don't cultivate the most basic part within 3 days, your destiny will collapse. You'll be implicated and your family will be ruined. It'll be considered a light punishment. Boy, are you willing to gamble with your family's life for an unknown future, for a possible opportunity?" Fate Creation Boy's voice was like a devil's, testing Wang Ming's conscience. Confusion, fear, hesitation, these emotions triggered the impurities in Wang Ming's heart, making him experience a torment that he had never experienced before. He had a deep understanding of the true feeling of the insects controlling his emotions and thoughts. Fate Creation Boy said to him, "Do you feel it? These are the insects in your body. Although in the beginning, you can only refine some small insects like the sleeping insect, the body-fixing insect, the gluttonous insect, and the liquor insect. In the future, these hesitations, indecisiveness, greed, and fear will all be your power. The fairy technique is not an ordinary dharma. It is extraordinary and surpasses all the inheritances of the human world. But it will consume your fate and cause you bad luck. Your family and friends will be implicated. If you can't kill Mao Tai within 3 days, your fate will backfire and your family will be ruined." As time passed, Wang Ming gradually overcame the uneasiness and fear in his heart. Finally, he made up his mind. He raised his head and said to Fate Creation Boy, "I will bear the responsibility for what I have done alone. Is there a way to cut ties with my parents and family so that my fate will not implicate my family?" Fate Creation Boy said, "Your decision is really beyond my expectations, but I still have to tell you there is. But do you know what price you have to pay?" Chapter 426. The basic settings are done. In the Xixia Temple, Chunong was trying out the insect release technique. This technique was created based on the 2 demons who had transformed into red-browed worms, and by referring to various evil arts and even diabolism techniques. It was definitely a new technique, and Wang Ming was the first glorious experiment's guinea pig. The concept of a worm is a completely different form of a demon or a yin demon. The danger within it is unbelievably great. If you don't have fortune rivaling heaven, you will definitely end up with a demon possessing your body and a yin demon burning internally. In the future, Wang Ming's fate has already been determined. He will be nothing more than completing the various tasks assigned by Chenong. Of course, on the surface, The reason must be to intercept all kinds of luck and, at the same time, to provide Chenong with experimental data. After setting a detailed route for Wang Ming's future and paying attention to him at all times, Chenong no longer paid attention to this chess piece and threw him into the magnificent fate of his family and country at the end of the Ming dynasty. Wang Ming and his family were destined to sacrifice everything for the various experiments and purposes of Chenong. Of course, this had nothing to do with Chenong, the righteous sword immortal. It was all the fault of Fate Creation Boy. Kill Mao Tai first, then kill Zhang Li, colonist of Nanping, Wild Boar Skin of North, first hero of the great Ming dynasty, and eternal red scarf Wang Ming. The people will miss you. Chenong left. Without Wang Ming, the guinea pig, this insect release technique, Chenong could at most push it to the first level, refining 2 sleeping worms and body-fixing worms, which could be used as 2 handy techniques. But with Wang Ming as a test subject, Chenong was confident that he could evolve the heavenly devil worm and the 3 corpse worm, which would be a different kind of mystery. After Wang Ming's matter was settled, Chenong's experiment and research came to an end. Now that he had nothing to do, he wanted to go down the mountain and travel. There was still nearly 20 years before the plot of Mount Shu began, and he could go anywhere in the world. There was no need to be trapped in Qisha Mountain. Besides, the celestial river's Dharma power could not be improved due to the lack of water vapor. So Chenong had to move to the big rivers and oceans to continue his cultivation. Liaodong was a suitable place, with abundant rivers such as Liao River, Yalu River, Songhua River, and Heilongjiang. Besides, it was cold in winter, which was helpful for Chenong to refine the Xianming genuine water. Unfortunately, if Chenong had not taken the path of a devil, he would have moved there a long time ago. Every day, he would skin and extract the bones of 300 wild boars. Then he would refine his magic and devil treasures with demonic fire. In this way, there were not many suitable places. Besides the 3 rivers, 2 rivers, and 4 seas, there were only the Qinghai Tibet Plateau, Tian Shan, and Kunlun. After careful consideration, Chenong still felt that the South Sea was the most suitable, because the South Sea not only had the most famous abode of Mount Shu, the Purple Cloud Palace, but also had a large number of individual immortals. Whether it was killing for treasures or making friends for research, it was an extremely rare place. Moreover, it was the Great Voyage era in the West. Chenong was also very interested to see how these Western colonists opened the Great Voyage era in the sea, where there were endless sea monsters and giant beasts. After making up his mind, Chenong took his worldly belongings. Fortunately, he had a batch of gold and silver from the treasure pouch of the red-browed ghost Lu Tang. He could be considered extremely rich in the human world. Only the salt merchants in Yangzhou could be so extravagant as to have thousands of taels of gold and silver. They would definitely not be short of consumption on the road. He put the red serpent macho in his sleeve and sent a message with a spell to ask Meng Xiaoshang, who was on the mountain, to help look after the Xixia temple. Then he opened the door and went down the mountain. At this time, the world was beginning to show signs of chaos, but it was all the chaos in the north. Whether it was the wild boar skin or the rebel army and roving bandits, none of them had invaded the south. At the end of the Ming dynasty, the market culture and commodity economy had reached the peak of the classical society. Nanjing was even more prosperous. This was the first time that Chenong came into contact with it. Compared to the magnificence of the northern Song dynasty, it was a different feeling. Jinling was prosperous, and Qinhuai was beautiful. Chenong was dressed as a Taoist priest, so he was not eye-catching. The Ming dynasty had strict control over the movement of people, but it was already the end of the dynasty. The commodity economy in the south of the Yangtze River was flourishing. The Yingtian prefecture was also known as Jinling. At this time, the Nanjing city was known by the common people. Every day, there would be a large number of people and vehicles entering and exiting the city. Chenong was among them. After showing his identity card to the guard at the city gate, he was easily led into the city. In terms of identity, Chenong was a Taoist priest with a clear background. He was also the master of the Xixia temple, which was officially recognized by the government. The Shisha Temple was located near Nanjing City and was often known by people. It was the first place for scholars in Nanjing to admire maples. Otherwise, he would not have been targeted by scholars here. In terms of identity, Chunong could freely walk around the whole Ming Dynasty territory. He could also hang out in any legal Taoist temple in the world and receive courteous reception. There were a few Taoist temples in the vicinity of Jinling, but Chunong was not short of money, so he didn't want to disturb them. He planned to find an inn to stay at first, and then look for a boat to set sail tomorrow. Occasionally, he would see one or two burly men dressed in official uniforms. Chunong would show a nostalgic smile. He had founded 2 secret service agencies. In the past, he also had a group of men dressed in flying fish uniforms. They ran amok in the Song Dynasty and the Tang Dynasty. They were famous in Jianghu. When he saw the embroidered uniform guards, he felt extremely close to them. Chunong saw the embroidered uniform guards coming and going in a hurry. The passers-by on the street also looked frightened when they saw them. In the early Ming Dynasty, the embroidered uniform guards were in charge of life and death. Passers-by did not dare to look at them directly. It was now the year of Chongxin. Wei Zhongxian had long since settled accounts. The embroidered uniform guards were not as powerful as they used to be. It was very strange that there were still people who were afraid. He did not want to calculate, so he found a passerby and asked, "The embroidered uniform guards come and go in a hurry. I see that the passers-by are frightened. Did something big happen?" The passerby saw that he did not know about the matter, so he patiently explained, "I heard that the city has been haunted by evil spirits. There have been 3 or 4 families in the vicinity who have died miserably. I also heard that Mao Tai, a bandit on the river, has snuck into the city to pick flowers. They suspect that he is the culprit. Yingtian is the second capital of the Ming Dynasty. How could such a terrible tragedy happen? The court has urged the embroidered uniform guards to look for news. They have already captured a number of foreigners and extorted money." What a coincidence, Chunong thought. Looks like Li Ning and Wang Ming have not succeeded. Mao Tai's fate is indeed not exhausted. He still could not be killed. He also asked, "Those imperial bodyguards came and went in a hurry. Did they find another victim?" "I heard so." The passerby was frightened and said, "That family only has a blind old woman. She actually met with misfortune. Mao Tai is indeed a great bandit. He is so cold and unafraid." Someone beside him interrupted, "Not only that. It is said that the person who met with misfortune was an elementary scholar who was taking the imperial examinations alone. He died together with his page boy in the house. His appearance was not bad. It seems that Mao Tai is also a southern wind." After a while, Chunong heard many rumors about Mao Tai. From the blind old woman to the young page boy, there seemed to be nothing that Mao Tai was afraid of. He was not picky about age, gender, or even appearance. He could not help but sigh that Mao Tai really had a good appetite. Chapter 427. Chunong chatted with the passerby for a while and was too lazy to join in the fun. From what he knew, Mao Tai was most likely framed, and the real culprit was someone else. He heard from the passerby that there were a few reputable inns in Yingtian City. Just as he was about to rest, he felt a finger reach into the 100 treasures pouch tied around his waist. "Oh, you're stealing from me." Chunang's right hand grasped the pulse of the third hand at lightning speed. Chunang's reaction couldn't be any faster. With a little bit of mana, his right index finger stretched out smoothly and placed on that hand's pulse. With a gentle push of his thumb, he clasped the back of that hand. He only felt that the hand that was clasped was as slippery as a loach. There was a thin layer of qi on the surface of the skin that was slippery to the touch. Chunong rubbed the Milky Way mana and turned it into an ice crystal shackle, locking the hand. At this moment, Chunong had already turned around and saw the appearance of the person. It was a cowardly old man in his 40s or 50s. He was very short, and his body was bent. He was only the size of a 10-year-old child. His Taoist robe was dirty beyond recognition, and the hair on his face was dirty and messy. He looked like a big monkey. The old man didn't panic or feel ashamed of being caught. He looked like a rascal and grinned at Chunong. He bowed to him and showed the ice crystal shackle on his hand, fellow Taoist, greetings. The old monkey spent all his money in Qinhuai, and it's been 20 years since he had anything to eat. Please forgive me for offending fellow Taoist. When I turn around and steal a fat sheep, I'll invite fellow Taoists to have fun on the pleasure boat. Chenong looked at his lazy character, and he was annoyed and amused. He didn't expect there to be such a talented person among the cultivators. He was already an individual immortal, but he still went to steal money. He hung the 100 treasures pouch on his waist and didn't hide the things inside. As an individual immortal, he should have known that there was nothing useful for cultivators other than some gold and silver. In other words, this itinerant immortal who lived in the secular world had really come for the money. Fellow Taoist, why do you have to deceive me? Other than us cultivators, who else would carry several thousand taels of gold and silver on them? Chenong asked with a smile. Fellow Taoist, could it be that you saw that I'm rich and specifically came to look for me? The old man chuckled. The truth was self-evident. He begged for mercy. I had eyes but failed to recognize the true Buddha. I have nothing on me now, so I can't compensate you. Let me go first. I've already scouted the place last night and found a big fat sheep. When I'm done with this tonight, I'll invite fellow Taoists to have fun on the Qinhuai River. What do you think? He raised the shackles on his right hand that were formed by the power of the Milky Way and said bitterly, Why use the Tying True water to lock me up? It was extremely cold and soft, and it froze half of the old monkey's body. His eyebrows were covered in frost, and his two small eyes blinked, making him look rather pitiful. If it wasn't for the restriction of the Tying Dharma power, how could it lock up a thief like you? Even though it's an unorthodox technique, it's still an expert who has inherited the true teachings of the great Tao. When Patriarch Kong Kong stole the golden pill from the Tai Ching house, no matter how many restrictions of earth, water, wind, and fire were able to trap him, he had already ascended during the Tang dynasty, and the descendants he left behind weren't as powerful as him. So how could they be restricted by ordinary means? Chenong said with a smile, Only the Tying Dharma power, soft and formless, in a single line of 1,000 miles, can lock down Kong Kong or his escaping technique. The old monkey sighed. If the attack didn't hit, I'll leave immediately. My and Patriarch's faces have all been lost in the hands of you and Yin Yang. I'm proficient in many escaping techniques, such as sword escape, earth escape, borrowing wind escape, and cloud escape, but I'm only afraid of a few special kinds of magic power. This Tying True water is one of the 3 softest kinds of magic power in the world, the natural nemesis of the old monkey. Fine, I'm convinced. Seeing that the old monkey had admitted defeat, Chenong unlocked the absolute crystal locket for him. The two of them standing on the street had already attracted the attention of many people. If it wasn't for the fact that they were both dressed in Taoist robes, there would have been officials coming up to question them. Chenong brought the old monkey to find an inn, and along the way, an incident happened. Because the old monkey was too sloppy, if it wasn't for the fact that Chenong gave him an extra sum of money, the other party might not have been willing to let him in. Looking at the old monkey's shifty eyes, Chenong thought, thieves are the most petty. If it wasn't for me, the innkeeper of this inn would have been robbed not long ago. Chenong asked for a superior room and invited the old monkey up. Seeing that the old monkey was as skinny as a monkey, Chenong ordered a table of good dishes for him to eat. Unexpectedly, the old monkey swallowed his saliva and rejected. Our patriarch has a rule. If you don't work for a day, you can't eat for a day. Because it's easy for us Taoists to earn money. If we don't use our skills to make a living, we'll inevitably be suspected of deceiving our masters and forgetting our ancestors. Chenong thought, it's fine if others say this, and they can even get the praise of having a good sex style. But you bunch of thieves actually have so many stupid rules and insist on using your skills to make a living. Is this something to be proud of? May I know how I should address you, Taoist friend? Chenong cupped his fists and asked. The old monkey revealed a mouthful of yellow teeth and smiled. I don't dare to. I'm called Jinsi because stealing things needs to be done quietly, isn't it? Chenong thought to himself. Although he was cursing his heart, he said, "Fellow Taoist Jianxi, you are well informed in Tian City. Do you know who is the culprit behind the recent murders in the city?" When Jianxi heard this, he became spirited. The greasy look on his face disappeared, and he said in a serious tone, "Coincidentally, I know a thing or two about what Dao's friend is asking about. I went to visit the families of the victims and found some traces of spells. I also heard about some situations. In the first two cases, innocent girls were harvested and killed. As for the other two cases that happened recently, they had something to do with a nearby Dara temple. The elementary scholar who died in the house went to the temple to burn incense during the day. When he returned, he was silenced and killed. I suspect that there are some heretical people who are trying to practice heretical spells. When I was still on the Qinhuai River, I heard that the daughters of many good families had been kidnapped. At first, I thought it was because of the nunnery of the pugilistic world. Later on, I found out that it had something to do with the Dara temple. When Shenong heard this, he laughed coldly. If that's the case, then we can't let them live past tonight. Fellow Taoist friend, since you've investigated so thoroughly, it seems that you have the intention to get rid of evil. Do you dare to go with me?" The old monkey laughed. "Don't try to provoke me. The first thing that Kong steals is human heads. I've long had the intention to steal their heads. I've been investigating for many days. Initially, I wanted to wait for the other 3 heroes of the pugilistic world to make their move. Then I'll follow behind and stealthily steal all the heads from their temple. Since fellow Taoist friend has no intention of letting them live past tonight, I'll go with you. Then fellow Taoist friend should go and work and eat your fill. Tonight, I'll wait for fellow Taoist friend." Chunong stood up to send the guest off. Just as he was about to leave, he asked, "Fellow Taoist friend, what are the names of the 3 heroes of the pugilistic world that you mentioned earlier?" Chapter 428. After leaving quietly, Chunong calculated for a moment and deduced the mysteries of heaven along the way. It turned out that this was also the fate of karma. Because Chunong accepted the 3 disciples of the 3 elites of Qilu, and because they caused trouble for the Temple of Dara, it was inevitable that there would be some danger. If Chunong stayed in the Shisha temple, the mysteries of heaven would naturally warn him, and he could calculate slowly. Anyway, the 3 of them were not in danger of dying. Only Yongda's fate was not good, and it was inevitable that there would be some danger. But since Chunong went down the mountain and came to Yingtian, he was drawn into the fate of the Temple of Dara, and was appointed by fate to be the tribulation taker of the Temple of Dara, so he should send all the people of the temple to samsara. And that strange person, Qing was also the evil star in the fate of the Temple of Dara, which was why the 2 met. The mystery of the fate of this world could be seen from this world. The way of heaven was not benevolent, and treated all things as dogs. It should have treated Taoists and demons equally, but the true masters of the mystic door had long understood the will of heaven, and linked the Tao fruit of the mystic door with the rise and fall of this world, and set up a heavy net for the way of heaven to maintain the reproduction and wonder of all things in this world. The excluded demonic sect and evil path would not have the chance to harm the world. According to Chun Ang's calculation, only after a few hundred years, when the way of humanity flourished and heaven and man offended each other, would there be chaos of karma, collapse of the net of law, and from then on the mysteries of heaven could no longer be calculated, and there would be no retribution for good and evil, leading to the prosperity of the demonic sect and being feared by the way of humanity. Only then did the Emperor of Heaven step into Yingzhou Mountain, ignite the star fire, share the land, and kill all the evil spirits. The way of humanity revolutionized the world, and with the posture of the overlord of this world, it flourished. Although it destroyed the wonderful life of this world, it was not like the Taoists who went against the way of heaven and was feared by the world. Instead, it violated the way of heaven and overthrew all the rules set by the righteous path. Even the spiritual fairy realm and the heaven realm could not interfere, and there were many human sages who blessed the way of humanity to create a glorious path. Open people's wisdom, Industrial Revolution. Avenue of science, explore the world. How can the progress of humanity be limited by karma and virtue? Chun Ong smiled and said, "Who in the righteous path dares to obstruct the progress of humanity? No wonder those cultivators gradually abandon this world. After all, this is the world of all living beings, not a paradise for cultivators to raise their people." Of course, this was a gradual process. The Taoist cultivators giving way to the people of humanity was also a gradual move. The people of the righteous path also decided to launch a massacre. They wanted to clean up the side sects of the devil path that might disrupt the advancement of humanity. At the same time, they wanted to recruit the cultivators who had karma points from the side sections. He reckoned that the rise of Mount was driven by them. They wanted to kill so that there wouldn't be two powerful demonic sects left behind, which would bring disaster to the world. Then, he moved the entire cultivation world to the spiritual immortal realm. When the main deity survives until Mount ascends, he can hide in the side sects of the devil path while the way of celestial is in seclusion and humanity has yet to be perfected. He can take the opportunity to control this world and use it as resources, Chun Ong calculated. The heavenly mystery that was originally developed and confirmed in this world suddenly had the two intruders, Chun Ong and the main deity. In the future, the conflict between heaven and man had an unpredictable future. Nanjing was next to the Yangtze River, so the water vapor was more abundant than Shisha Mountain. Chun Ong could also relax a little and absorb the water vapor to increase the cultivation of the celestial river mana. Therefore, the people in the city felt strange. The weather was cloudy in the morning, but in the afternoon, it was clear and the sky was clear. After dusk, Chun Ong quietly cultivated until a skinny silhouette quietly touched the roof of his house and knocked on the tiles 3 times. Then, Chun Ong turned into a beam of light and rushed to the roof. He saw the old monkey squatting there sneakily and scratching his ears and cheeks like a monkey. The old monkey saw him and his eyes brightened. He said to Chun Ong excitedly and anxiously, "I'll teach you a good show. Just follow me." Chun Ong didn't know what he was up to, but according to his character, although he was very playful, he wouldn't mess up the important things. Chun Ong wasn't afraid that he would delay the serious business of the two of them killing people tonight. As expected, the old monkey still brought him in the direction of Dara Temple. The two of them hid their conveyance light and arrived in the forest outside of Dara Temple in a breath. They hid their bodies and watched from midair. Below them were 3 silhouettes dressed in black. Chun Ong recognized his 3 disciples at first glance. There was an invisible bug on Li Ning's body. He scanned with his spiritual sense, and sure enough, there was another silhouette lying not far behind them. It was Wang Ming. The old monkey pointed excitedly at the 3 people below and said, "I was afraid that the thief who kowtowed to the temple would die without any background. So I lured the 3 heroes of Qilu and Qilu to get rid of evil in advance. Originally, the 3rd brother wanted to wear a white robe, but I teased him a few times. We'll hide here and secretly help them kill their way up. If the evil person shows up, we'll go out and kill him with our flying swords." The old monkey liked to tease people the most. When he said this, he danced with joy and was very excited. He even explained to Chun Ong, "I don't know where the 3 heroes of Qilu and Qilu came from, but their martial arts are very powerful. The 3 brothers all have the best martial arts in the world. It's a pity that they don't have enough experience, or else I would have suffered a loss. But when they fight, it's very exciting. It's more interesting than any spells or flying swords. The eldest brother has a unique hidden weapon. The 2nd brother's knife skills are unpredictable, and the 3rd brother's lightness skill is unparalleled. All 3 of them have a wonderful breathing technique. If I know who their master is, I'll steal their secret martial arts. Steal it." He. Chun Ong curled his lips and sneered, "I'm not talented. The 3 below are all my useless disciples." The old monkey was laughing halfway when he heard what he said. After a long time, he squeezed out a sentence and laughed to bury the matter. "Aha! That brat behind you has been following your disciple for a long time. His abilities aren't good, but his magic is quite good. I clearly saw him casting a spell, but I just don't know how he followed behind your disciple. Because he released the tracking bug. Chenong answered him in his mind. There are three main streams of spells in the human world in the Central Plains. The first is the Luofu sect, which takes in countless disciples and spreads their spells all over the world. Although the disciples of the Luofu sect are half cultivators and half Taoist spells in the human world, they are still orthodox. Among the three main streams, their abilities are the highest. The second is the Maoshan Taoist priests. They mainly exorcise evil spirits and use spells such as illusions. They also have the ability to cast curses and refine corpses to harm people. Although most of their subordinates are decent people, they are also one of the main streams of heretical demons in the pugilistic world. The last one is the Maishan Navy. They're a combination of the lowly spells in the human world and the witchcraft of Xiangxi since ancient times. Most of them are gods and sorcerers. Decent cultivators will not be interested in them. The old monkey frowned and said, "That kid's spells are very good, much better than those of the three sections. Even I can't see any clues, but he is still in the human world. Who is his inheritance?" Chenong wanted to say, "He is also my disciple." However, this kind of test subject was beneath his identity as a righteous master, so it was not appropriate for him to say it. Coincidentally, the three of them had climbed over the walls of Dara Temple and attracted the attention of the little fox. Chapter 429. Li Ning and the other two only had to lean on the wall for support before they flipped over the wall with their superb lightness kung fu. Ever since Chenong taught them martial arts, the three of them were already at the top of the human world. Their movements were silent, and they were not afraid of being heard by others. There were indeed ghosts in Dara Temple. It was almost midnight, but there were still many people patrolling the area. Li Ning observed the patrolling pattern from afar. He released his dart from afar and eliminated all the hidden and overt sentries. Chenong observed them for a while and saw that they were very disciplined. For Li Ning to be able to make such a name for himself in the Jianghu, he was naturally not someone to be trifled with. They were well-versed in serving justice and socializing in the Jianghu. Had it not been for the heretical cultivators supporting Daluo Temple, Chenong would not have needed to make a move. He secretly looked at the traces left behind by the evil sorcerer and knew that it was not a big case that could be done by a witch or a witch in the mortal world. For an evil sorcerer to have such ability, his mana must have reached the stage of Yin Shun. His magic would no longer be tainted by things like black dog blood and menstruation in the mortal world. In Chunang's eyes, there were still small fries that could be killed with a flip of his hand. But to the people of Jianghu, they were already legendary figures like the ancestors of the evil sects and the top masters of the evil sections. They were the leaders of the evil sects in Jianghu once in 100 years. The people of Jianghu could only look at them but not reach them. They were legends that had been passed down for hundreds of years. Below, Li Ning and the others were still approaching the main hall. The people in the temple had already noticed that something was wrong with the patrolling team. They shouted at the people outside, and when there was no response, they started to shout. This alerted the entire Dara Temple. Many ferocious and evil-looking monk soldiers rushed out with their Buddhist commandment blades. The leading monk with a big scar on his face cupped his hands and said, "Who is it that came to visit our Dara Temple? I don't know how I have offended you. Please come out and have a chat." Someone on the side shouted, "Who is hiding there? Come out and let me see you." Chenong and Qing were shocked. They knew that the main character had arrived. Qing smiled and said, "They should have alerted the enemy and helped us see the situation clearly." Chenong shook his head and said, "I'm afraid there are good people locked up in the temple. I'm going to take this opportunity to take a peek first so that I won't accidentally injure a loved one." Then he sent out a bit of his spiritual sense to investigate the situation inside the temple. The three heroes of Qilu were highly skilled and daring. As soon as they were provoked by the evil monk of Dara Temple, they jumped out. Li Ning had learned the secret of hidden weapons from Chun Ang's Heaven's Net Deception. He had a lot of embroidery needles in his waist pouch. With one needle, he took the life of a person in Dara Temple. He used his body movement technique, and the needles were like rain hitting a banana leaf. People kept falling down. This kind of scene was like an ancient cold weapon battle, and suddenly a machine gun appeared out of nowhere. The scene was very shocking. Dara Temple also had masters. When they saw Li Ning, they wanted to fly closer, but no one could get within 20 steps of him. The flying needles in the night sky were as small as mosquitoes, but they carried an indescribable force. This was the poison created by Tongwan. It was extremely sinister and strange. The person who was hit by the needles only felt a slight pain, like being bitten by a mosquito. After a short while, he lost consciousness as the poison attacked his heart. What a sinister martial art! The evil monk of Dara Temple, who was hiding in the main hall, shouted, "Who are you? Why are you looking for trouble with our Dara Temple? I, Iron Arhut Kwang Yuan, have never offended you. Why are you bullying us?" It seemed that his name had some influence in Jianghu. As soon as the three heroes of Qilu heard this, they sent Zhou Chun to stand in front of them and shouted, "Thieves! You have done many evil deeds, and now that retribution is upon you, you still want to quibble? The three of us have known about your evil deeds since half a month ago. We were afraid that we would wrongly accuse innocent people, so we tried to find out more. My big brother, Li Ning, even snuck into your den a few times. I saw with my own eyes that you kidnapped innocent people and imprisoned them in the temple. You abused them day and night, completely devoid of conscience. The scholar who came to your temple to play and bumped into your scandal was also secretly rescued by my big brother. Who would have thought that you would be so cruel and unscrupulous as to harm him again? Today, we, the three heroes of Qilu, will not let you scum go." The evil monk heard this and laughed coldly. "So it's the three heroes of Qilu. I saw that it was not easy for you to cultivate your skills, so I took pity on your talent and wanted to spare your lives. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" He wanted to show off his skills, so he took out a gourd from his waist, opened it, and aimed it outside the main hall. He slapped the bottom of the gourd hard, and a black fog rushed out of the gourd. It flew around and occupied about half an acre of space. The black fog smelled the scent of a living person, and directly went towards the hiding place of the three heroes of Qilu. Chenong could see clearly that the black fog was a swarm of poisonous bees the size of a thumb. There were hundreds of thousands of them. When these violent, poisonous bees gathered together, they were more terrifying than any jackals, wolves, tigers, or leopards. No matter how high one's martial arts skills were, one would not be able to face them directly. The old monkey quietly asked, "Fellow Taoist, are you still not going to make a move? This kind of harmful magic is not something that human martial arts can fight against. These poisonous fire wasps are domesticated by cultivators, and their poison is especially terrifying. They have also been sacrificed through blood sacrifice. They are bloodthirsty and violent, and are known as the wind tiger. When they see blood, they are not afraid of death, and when they are burned by fire, they will turn into poisonous smoke. They are very difficult to deal with. Let's wait first. Although the poisonous bees are difficult to deal with, Li Ning is cautious and meticulous. He might have a way," Chenong said. As soon as the poisonous bees flew out of the gourd, they gathered together and followed the scent of a living person. These mutants were cruel and bloodthirsty. When using evil methods to sacrifice, they often had to be fed blood. In order to sacrifice this gourd, that evil monk had harmed countless people. He was reluctant to spend money to buy cattle and sheep blood for these poisonous bees, so he killed people to raise them. As a result, their temperament was even more violent than ordinary poisonous bees, and they would go crazy when they smelled human blood. Zhou Chun was the first to rush forward, and he used his movement technique to deliberately provoke these poisonous bees. He took off his coat and rubbed it with his palm, igniting it. He then threw the burning coat at the swarm of bees and nimbly dodged the hidden weapons that flew out of the main hall. He slashed open the window with his palm and went into the main hall where the evil monks of Dara Temple were gathered. The swarm of poisonous bees buzzed angrily as they followed the direction in which Zhou Chun had escaped. At this time, in the main hall, Zhou Chun darted left and right and shot out several kinds of hidden weapons, injuring many people. The poisonous bees went crazy when they smelled the blood and went into the main hall, biting anyone they saw. Even the evil monk who released the bees couldn't order them to do anything. He could only rely on some medicine to protect himself from being bitten. So how could he help others? In an instant, the main hall was filled with the howling of wolves and ghosts, and the wailing of ghosts and screams. Relying on the movement technique that Chenong taught him, Zhou Chun was the first to escape. Chapter 430. By this time, the group of monks was in chaos. The vicious monk Iron Luohan Kuang Yuan, who released the poisonous bees, retreated in a sorry state. Li Ning and Yang De were worried about their sworn brother's injury, so they did not pursue him. Kuang Yuan was preparing to retreat temporarily to avoid the Qilu three heroes, when suddenly he heard a man's hoarse voice behind him saying in a low voice, "Brother Kuang, let me lend you a hand." Kuang Yuan was overjoyed. "Mao Tai, you came just in time. Help me take down the three of them. If we disturb Martial Uncle Longfei's practice, none of us will be able to bear the consequences." Mao Tai heard this and replied in a low voice, as if he was very afraid of this Martial Uncle Longfei. His right hand was missing 2 fingers. When he saw Zhou Chun, his eyes were filled with murderous intent, and he shouted, "Zhou Chun, I respected you and made friends with you out of goodwill. Who would have thought that you would turn your back on me? First, you cut off 2 of my fingers, and then you said you would let me go. But you immediately changed your mind and chased after me. If it wasn't for my master, I, Mao Tai, would have died a violent death. Now that my martial uncle Longfei is here, if you retreat, you can still struggle at death's door. I'll talk to you when I finish my practice. Otherwise, if you alarm my martial uncle, your soul will be destroyed, and you will not be able to reincarnate." Chenong heard it clearly. He thought, "I was wondering why Mao Tai was able to escape from the hands of the 3 heroes of Qilu and Wang Ming. Turns out it was the golden body Arhut Fa Yuan who saved him, and also under the protection of the 7 hands Ixshalong Fei, he was mixed with this Daluo temple's evil people." He pinched his fingers and calculated. It was indeed golden-bodied Arhut Fa Yuan who predicted that Mao Tai, who was destined to be his disciple, was in trouble and saved his life. As for the 7-armed Yiksha, Long Fei, he was not in the Flying Thunder Cave of Mount Wui. Instead, he came to Ingtian City to take the lives of those women. He wanted to use their souls to refine 18 devils. Together with the 9 mother-son Yin spirit swords in his hand, he could unleash the power of many powerful spells. Fa Yuan will still have use for him in the future. If Xian Temple did not have him, they might not be able to provoke so many Wu Tai sect members. Su Feinyang doesn't have that much prestige. Only Fa Yuan, who joined the sect earlier than her, has always been loyal to the primordial chaos founding master, and has no record of betrayal, can suppress those demon Dao unorthodox sects, and become the leader of Benevolent Cloud Temple. Moreover, although Fa Yuan befriended many evil people, he himself did not commit any evil deeds. He could even be said to be clean and self-disciplined. If he was spared, he would not commit any evil deeds. The Xian Temple still needed him to invite many people to help them in the fight between good and evil. Only then were they able to invite the likes of the Green-Robed Patriarch and the Young Moon Zen Master. Chenong was unwilling to make a move and quietly watched from the side. They all knew that the 7-handed Xia, Long Fei, was the one they were waiting for. Among the 2 demons on the field, Mao Tai had just become his disciple and did not have any powerful abilities, while Kuang Yuan had been tricked by Zhou Chun into using his most powerful magic treasure, and was no longer a match for the 3 heroes of Qi and Lu. However, there was someone who could not hold back. Wang Ming became restless when he heard Mao Tai's name. He moved a little further forward, intentionally avoiding the 3 heroes of Qi and Lu. He first hammered his own nose until it was sore and tears flowed out. Then 2 invisible bugs sprayed out from his nose and flew toward Mao Tai. These 2 bugs were magical bugs that he cultivated. One was a sleeping bug, and the other was a body-fixing bug. One could confuse one's mind, and the other could stiffen the body. Although it was not a powerful spell, it was good at hiding. The two bugs flew out at the same time and drilled into Mao Tai and Kuang Yuan's noses in a familiar way, and did not attract their attention. It was not until Kuang Yuan suddenly felt a strong sense of drowsiness that he could not stand still. He swayed a few times and was about to fall down that they realized something was wrong. Kuang Yuan pinched his thigh, using the pain to temporarily suppress his drowsiness, and shouted, "This is bad. Junior brother Mao Tai, we have fallen into someone's trap. Quickly go and call Uncle Master Long Fei." How could Mao Tai still move? Only his two eyes were moving around, revealing his anxiety. Kuang Yuan clenched his teeth and wanted to shout for help, but he felt his vision go black, and his head had already flown into the sky. Wang Ming raised the sword that was stained with his neck blood, and without even bothering to retrieve the red gourd in his arms, he rushed toward Mao Tai. Not to mention Mao Tai, even Li Ning and the other two were at a loss with this series of changes. Only Chenong and Qing, who could see clearly. Qing chuckled and said, "He's still a promising person." Wang Ming ran in front of Mao Tai, and without waiting for him to come back to his senses, he took his little life with his sword. The crane feather sword was sharp, and it directly cut off Mao Tai's head. Wang Ming held it in his hand, ignoring the evil monks beside him as he walked straight toward the three heroes of Qi and Lu. When he was less than 10 steps away from Li Ning and the others, Wang Ming stood still and cupped his hands toward them, saying, "Is Uncle Li Ning here?" Li Ning said hesitantly, You are Wang Ming?" He didn't know what had happened to Wang Ming these days. His youthful face, which used to be filled with expressions to let people know his face, was now indifferent and deep. It was no wonder that Li Ning didn't dare to recognize him for the time being. Wang Ming threw the head in his hand and bowed to Li Ning, saying, "Greetings, uncle. It is indeed Wang Ming." After a long time, Li Ning said, "Child, why don't you go see your uncle? He didn't get any news about you, so he was very worried." Wang Ming also didn't answer for a long time, and finally sighed, "Wang Ming can't go back anymore. Uncle Li Ning, please pass a message to my uncle. Ask him to tell my old parents. Wang Ming is unfilial. Let them pretend that they never gave birth to me, their son, and then think of a way to continue the Wang family's lineage. They have another son in life, and I, this unfilial son, will pretend that I never raised him." Li Ning said angrily, "What are you talking about?" Wang Ming looked up to the sky and laughed in grief and indignation. "Uncle Li Ning, we haven't seen each other for a month. Does Wang Ming still enter your eyes?" Then he turned around and cried, "Do you know what price I have to pay for this?" He laughed 3 times, then cried 3 times, then turned around to leave. But he heard a hoarse voice shout, "Who is crying and laughing over there, making strange noises, disturbing my practice?" In a flash, a green sword light soared up from the back of the main hall, carrying a man with dark skin, thick joints, and a cold and gloomy body, more like a zombie than a human. Seeing the corpses in the Dara temple, and Mao Tai and Kuang Yuanjun lying on the ground, he immediately showed an extremely cruel sneer and said, "You killed my martial nephew, and made me lose face in front of Fa Yuan. I'll make you pay with your lives." When the primeval chaos martial master was still around, Fa Yuan often criticized him with the sect rules, and Long Fei was a little dissatisfied with his martial brother. Later on, he became a disciple of the White Bone God, Lord of the Cave of Gods and Demons on Mount Lu, and with the strength of 2 sects, he got into an argument with Fa Yuan, but after all, he did not turn against him. Moreover, this martial nephew of his, Mao Tai, was greedy and lustful, which was quite to his taste. Seeing him lying on the ground, how could Long Fei not be angry? The 9 sons and Mother Yin spirit swords that Long Fei refined was a set of flying swords rarely seen in the evil sects. With a total of 24 swords, it was the set of flying sword from the Wutai sect that was the most harmful to heaven and harmony. The whole body was surrounded by green light, and the 9 sons and Mother Yin spirits were imprisoned on the swords. Who knew how many vengeful spirits were refined in the sword light? Chapter 431. Chun Ong snorted and let go of the power of the Milky Way that grabbed Li Ning and the other 2, shielding them behind him. He quietly spread out the stained Taoist robe on his body, and it turned into a thick yellow treasure light that enveloped the four of them. Then he patted the back of his head, and a large pearl soared up in front of him. Sure enough, he was a member of the thievery sect. He was rich, far from someone like Chenong, who had just reincarnated and only had a treasure of the devil refining true fire. I knew someone was lying in ambush. Without you, how could my two martial nephews be ruined by a few human heroes? How dare you two hide your heads and show your tails? If you surrender and accept your death, I can still leave you with a whole corpse. If you dare to resist, you will enjoy the pleasure of the devil refining fire. The sword light turned in the air and flew toward Chenong and stealthily together with the 11 sword lights that flew out from Long Fei's body. Chenong opened his hand and released a devil refining true fire. Then he heard stealthily say, "Chen Daoyu, Long Fei's flying sword is powerful. It should be the true inheritance of the Wutai sect." Chenong also transmitted his voiceover and said, "This person isn't my match. I just noticed that there are many innocent girls in the dungeons in this temple. Fellow Taoist, you should go save those pitiful girls while he's out of the dungeons. I will kill all the evil creatures in this temple, so that they won't hurt the innocent." Hearing this, stealthily hesitated for a moment. How powerful was Long Fei's magic power? First, he had a master who was a top master of the side sect, the ancestor of time immemorial, who was of the same generation as the long-browed Taoist. Then his master, the white bone god of the cave of gods and demons of Mount Lu, was also a giant of the devil path. It could be said that he had the top inheritance of the side sect of the devil path. His magic power was no less than stealthily's. In comparison, although Chenong captured him as soon as they met, he did not know more about Chenong's background. Chenong saw that he was hesitating, so he waved his hand and shot out a stream of mana to wrap him up. Borrowing the power of the stars and the sky, he teleported and sent him down to the dungeon. In just a split second, Qing was teleported from the sky to the dungeon. Only then did he understand a little about Chenong, and he was extremely shocked. Chen Daoyu's mana is so powerful that seven-armed Diksha is really not his match. Borrowing the power of the stars to shift my escape technique is 10 times stronger than my magic power at night. Now that the sky is bright and the stars are hidden, the difficulty is more than 10 times higher. In that case, wouldn't Chen Daoyu's magical power be 100 times stronger than mine? Although Long Fei is strong, he is on par with me. If Chen Daoyu wants to kill him, it will only be a little troublesome. Immediately, he relaxed and began to rescue the poor people who were imprisoned here. On one side, Chenong used his magic power to teleport, but on the other side, he used the spirit flames of the eternal lamp to turn into a fire cloud, enveloping the entire Dara temple, compressing the space where Long Fei could move. The spirit flames in the fire cloud contained firepower. It looked like the sunset glow was hidden in the cloud. A few evil monks could not see through the secret within, and when they touched it with their hands, they were instantly burned into a pile of residue. A bunch of idiots. Long Fei snorted coldly. He looked at the remnants of the Dara temple who were hiding behind him. Suddenly, an ominous glint flashed in his eyes, and 6 more Een spirit swords flew out from his back, sacrificing all of them to the flying sword. With the help of the blood sacrifice, the 6 Een spirit swords merged with the previous 12 swords and gradually pushed away the approaching fire cloud, winning the space for the sword light to be displayed. Flying swords were the most commonly used treasures by cultivators. After generations of development, the swordsmanship of cultivators was broad and profound. It was truly one of the most unique skills in the world of Shu Mountain. A flying sword was extremely sharp and compatible with the primordial spirit. One sword could break through all kinds of techniques. It was really very pretentious, and it was very suitable for Chenong's taste. Chenong's magic power was one of the best in this world. With his understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth, he had accumulated a large amount of knowledge regarding energy, space, information, and dimensions. Even the most destructive spells in this world were at his fingertips. Not to mention a little seven-handed Sha Long Fei. Even if he wanted to turn the whole Jiangsu province into scorched earth, it would not be a problem. Whether it was using the heavenly river's magic power to break the earth's crust, using the flame of the eternal lamp in his hand to ignite the ancient earth lung poison fire, turning a continent into scorched earth, or using the nine heavens astral wind to attack the surface of the earth and grind off a layer of the earth's crust. It was all ordinary. If he were to launch a ruthless attack and draw the entire heavenly demon world into this world, countless demons and heavenly demons would rush out and destroy the world. Then he would spend some effort to draw the true fire contained in the sun star and burn this planet. However, when that time came, he would probably have to fall out with the spiritual immortal world and the heavenly realm. He would fight in the world of Shu Mountain until the heavens and earth were destroyed, countless galaxies shattered, and even time no longer existed. However, Chenong still quite liked this world. Of course, he would not do such a thing. In his mind, he was thinking about when to open the furnace to forge a flying sword for himself. The heavenly river's magic power surrounding him was refined into two bundles, with the heavenly true water and the lunar true water as the backbone. They turned into two sword lights and fought with Long Fei's 18 clasps, 9 mother and child spirit swords. Long Fei's sword light was sharp. Even though Chun Ang's heavenly river's magic power was profound and the condensed sword light seemed to have substance, it was not a proper flying sword after all. The moment it came into contact with Long Fei, the magic power of the sword light was even faintly dispersing. It was only until Chun Ong temporarily avoided the sharp edge of the spirit swords and only cared about pointing, sticking, entangling, and attacking from the side. The sword light would leave as soon as it came into contact with the spirit swords and did not fight head-on with them. Only then did the situation stabilize. Chun Ang's pure intention was to use Long Fei to hone his swordsmanship. Relying on his terrifying calculation ability and superb foresight, he tangled with Long Fei. In the beginning, he still needed Hui Yun's help from time to time. Together with the sword light, he forced Long Fei to return to his sword to protect himself. Later on, as his swordsmanship became more proficient, he displayed all kinds of extreme swordsmanship that surpassed the imagination of ordinary people. Behind him, the 3 elites of Qilu, Wang Ming, and the others were dumbfounded. In the end, Chun Ang's 2 sword lights appeared in many places at the same time. To others, it seemed that Chun Ong had created many more sword lights. However, only Chun Ong knew that his 2 sword lights did not increase. The new sword lights that appeared were a superior state in the swordsmanship sword light division. In this world, the swordsmanship of sword light division was not that rare. Many old seniors with profound cultivation had this skill. Only the cultivators who had just entered the Tao could rely on this to win the praise of a genius swordsmanship. However, people like Chun Ong, who used his own mana to create sword lights, were also unprecedented. At the beginning, Long Fei was still able to deal with it easily. However, when Chun Ang's swordsmanship became proficient, he became a little embarrassed. As he urged the sword lights to tangle with Chun Ong, he silently sensed Chun Ang's breath. The 6 spirit swords that were protecting his body were ready to go. He secretly thought to himself, not only is this person's spell powerful, his swordsmanship is even more superb. At first, there were some flaws, but later on, he became more and more superb and didn't give me any chance. If I want to defeat him, I have to use a surprise attack. Otherwise, when he activates his spell and sword techniques, I can only abandon my flying sword and run for my life. If I am not careful, I might even be killed by him. Thus, he found an opportunity to release the wonderful appearance demon that he had just refined. He wanted to catch Chun Ong off guard without making a sound. Then, he took the opportunity to release the 6 spirit swords in his hands. Together with the 18 swords on the field, he used the sword technique that he was most proud of in his life. The 24/9 mother and child spirit swords killed the enemy. However, it would be fine if he did not move, but he would die easily. In terms of demonic path spells, Chen was comparable to those old monsters that lived in seclusion in West Kunlun. Was it releasing the Een demon to give Chen a chance to intervene? Chen smiled coldly and made a hand sign. Instead, he activated the wonderful appearance Een demon and counterattacked his master, Long Fei. Long Fei shouted. The sword lights that were protecting his body faintly dispersed. Chen sword lights turned and moved several feet in the air. He directly passed through the gap of the sword lights that were protecting Long Fei's body and killed him with one strike. Even his primordial spirit was wiped away by the cold intent that the sword carried. Chapter 432. He opened his hand and kept the fire cloud. The Milky Way mana wrapped the 24/9 mother and child Een spirit swords and returned them to Chen-Ang's hand. Only then did he raise his hand to retrieve the 100 treasures pouch from Long Fei's corpse. He searched around and found some demonic items, which he kept in the 100 treasures pouch. Only then did Chen-Ang use spiritual fire to refine Long Fei and the bodies of the evil monks in the temple. Looking at Mao Tai and Kuang Yuan's corpses, Chen-Ang held the red-skinned bottle gourd in his hand and said to Li Ning, "Bring these two evil creatures' corpses to the officials to close the case, lest the imperial court disturbs the victims' families." He then looked at the huge wealth of the Dara temple and sneered, "Don't let those greedy officials benefit from this place. Divide the wealth that the demons collected into 3 portions. One portion will be given to the victims who were killed innocently. The other portion will be given to the innocent girls that Senior will save later, so that they can use it to settle down. Keep the last portion for yourselves. In the future, when you're doing chivalry and helping the weak, you can also help if you encounter natural disasters." Li Ning replied respectfully, "Yes, master." Chen-Ang saw that the 3 of them did not have any ulterior motives in their eyes, so he knew that this time, the 3 of them were completely convinced. Even Zhou Chun was the same. He truly regarded himself as his master. The bottle gourd of poisonous fire wasps had already been burned by Chen-Ang. Zhou Chun could not help but let out a grunt from the poison acting up. Li Ning was very worried when he heard this. He secretly blamed himself for not keeping any of the spirit crane saliva that Chen-Ang had given him. Chen-Ang saw through his worry and took out a jade bottle from his bosom. He passed it to Zhou Chun and said, "There are 9 pills in this bottle. Take one, and it will cure the fire poison in your body." He then passed 2 more jade bottles to Li Ning and said, "Last month, I refined pills with a few friends and got share. Here's some pills for you guys. In the future, if you meet them in the pugilistic world, here are 3 bottles of pills. The bottle of 9 pills is called the exorcism pill. It can expel external demons and strengthen the foundation. In the future, when you use the pill to save people, just let them lick it." Seeing the 3 people's dumbfounded expressions, Chen-Ang laughed and scolded, "It's not that I'm stingy, it's just that this pill has many miraculous effects. If you dissolve 1 pill in a well, you'll be able to create a medicinal well that could dispel colds and typhoid for 3 months without running out. It can cure tens of thousands of people. The fire poison in Zhou Chun's body can be dissolved in a large basin and can be used to cure hundreds of people." Hearing those words, how could Zhou Chun still dare to consume it? He hurriedly said, "Then I'll just lick it. There's no need for that. I have my own reasons for letting you use it. I'm not worried about your martial arts skills when you're in Jianghu, but I'm afraid that you'll be plotted against and poisoned by evil spirits. After taking the exorcism pill, you'll be immune to 100 poisons. It's also my kind intention to help you. The 3 of you take 1 each. There are 2 kinds of pills left. One is the rebirth pill, which can reshape your bones. There are 3 pills in total. Think about how you'll use them. There are also 24 fasting pills, which can cure one of the most widespread diseases in the world. When you're in Jianghu, just lick it and you won't feel hungry for several days. Now that the world is in chaos, if there are refugees suffering from hunger, you must cherish this pill and treat them immediately. This pill can fill the stomachs of thousands of people. If you value this pill more than your lives, you'll no longer be my disciples." Hearing Chen-Ang's serious words, Li Ning and the other 2 did not dare to act as if nothing had happened. They hurriedly kowtowed and swore, "We'll obey your orders. Anyone who disobeys will be struck by lightning." After Chunong finished instructing the disciples, he turned to look at Wang Ming with a faint smile. Wang Ming wanted to say something stubbornly. "I was the one who stole your magic treasure. I'll accept any punishment." Such bold words, but when he thought of Fate Creation Boy's teachings, he became weary and stood aside with his head shrunk. Unexpectedly, Chunong only asked him to leave Mao Tai's head and let him go with a wave of his sleeve. "Fate Creation Boy, did I earn enough fate to offset the consumption of the art of releasing bugs?" Wang Ming asked anxiously as he ran away. Fate Creation Boy said slowly, "It was enough, but now that I've helped you escape, it's not enough." "Ah!" Wang Ming cried. "Wasn't it the Taoist who protected me? Will he protect you without fate? Will he let you go without consuming fate? Don't forget, you're the #1 suspect of the treasure theft. If you didn't consume the fate you got from Mao Tai, how could you be so smooth sailing?" Wang Ming let out a blood-curdling scream and left in grief. Chunong waited for a while and quietly returned to the surface with dozens of young women. He said to Chunong, "Taoist friend, you're very skillful. I smelled the fragrance of the elixir below, and it attracted the old monkey's soul." Zhou Chun heard this and helplessly looked at the jade bottle in his hand. He looked up and saw the old monkey looking at him with its bright eyes. He looked at Chunong with a bitter smile. This thing was given to him by his honored master. It was okay to use it for chivalry, but he needed Chun Ang's permission to give it to others. Chunong shook his head and smiled. "Taoist friend, don't make things difficult for my disciple. If you want the elixir, I have more here. You're also a senior master. How can you covet the things of the younger generation?" Qing did not care. She rubbed her hands and said with a smile, "Ever since Patriarch Kong tasted the elixir of Tai Ching, this elixir has become our favorite. If I didn't know you well and know that your mana is strong, I might have gone to your cave to steal the elixir. A few months ago, I smelled an inexplicable elixir fragrance coming from Qixia Mountain in Yingtian. I was going to steal the elixir after solving this problem. But now that I smell it again, the person who is refining elixir in Qixia Mountain must be Taoist friend." He scratched his ears and cheeks and said anxiously, "I can't steal the elixir now. Taoist friend, you can give me a few and let me have a taste." Chunong did not know that there was such a thing. If it were not for him, Meng Xiaoshang on Qixia Mountain would have suffered. Chunong did not believe that Meng Xiaoshang could keep 1/3 of her elixir in Qing Er's hands. "Don't go. There is still the elixir of a Taoist friend of mine. She's a rogue cultivator, but does not have much wealth. I don't need a lot of elixirs here. If you want, I will give them to you." As Chunong said this, he took out a few jade bottles from his arms and stuffed them all to Qing Er. When Qing Er heard that there were still elixirs, he pricked up his ears and put the jade bottles that Chunong gave him into his arms. Looking at his rolling eyes, Chunong knew that female immortal Meng was going to be robbed again, but he did not want to point it out. Qing Er knew that Meng Xiaoshang was his friend, so he would not go overboard. He came from a rich family and would definitely give Meng Xiaoshang other compensation. It was also a good thing for Meng Xiaoshang to get to know such a senior, so there was no need for him to stop her. Chunong said to the old monkey, "These poor daughters, I still need you to send them back. If they have families, then send them back. If they don't, then find a way to settle them down. I still have some elixirs here that can replenish their vitality. Think of a way to cover them up so that they won't be looked down upon." The old monkey nodded and said, "Leave this place to me. I can also turn this place into a nunnery to settle those girls who have nowhere to go. I can also take care of them nearby so that they won't be bullied." As he said this, he waved his sleeves and took all the valuables that Li Ning and the others offered. There were more than 100,000 taels of silver, which was more than enough. Chunong said again, "Long Fei still has 24 spirit swords and many." When he said this, the old monkey interrupted him and said, "I don't have the power to dissolve the spirit on the sword. Besides, you were the one who killed him, so what does it have to do with me? Don't mention it again." He was itching to do it again and laughed. "But I won't stand on ceremony with him in the flying thunder cave of Mount Wu. When the time comes, I will go and look for it, and I will give you a share. There was a woman next to him who was also kidnapped by the thieves from Dara Temple. But there were virtuous and foolish people. Some of the kidnapped women also hooked up with the evil monks from the temple. Chenong and Shi were aware of this, but they didn't care about it. This woman was one of them. Her name was Yang Shi. She came from a small family and didn't have a name. She only had the name of the flower in the devil's cave, Xiangxiang. Yang Xiangxiang learned a lot of tricks from the evil monks in the temple. When she saw that Chenong and the others had strong mana, she changed her mind and cried out, "Two immortals, I really have nowhere to go. Please take me in. I will do anything for immortals to repay you for saving my life." She originally thought that even if the two of them looked down on her ruined appearance, they would at least comfort her a little. Then she could take advantage of the situation to seek death. Even if she couldn't climb up to the higher branches, she would still be able to get a big share of those 100,000 taels of silver. Unexpectedly, when she said this, not only did Chenong and Shi's faces turn cold, even Li Ning and Yang sneered. Chapter 433. Everyone present was as cunning as a ghost. How could they not see through her little thoughts? Chenong did not speak. He just smiled and said, "We are all unaffiliated people who live like wild cranes. We eat and sleep in the open all day long. We can't take in a girl like you. You'd better find your own way out." After saying that, he gave her 10 taels of silver and sent her away. At this time, although Jiangnan of the Great Ming Dynasty was rich and populous, 10 taels of silver was enough for a farmer's family to make a living for a year. With the silver, Yang Xiangxiang could go to her relatives or find her own way out. It would be enough for her to settle down and live a life. But how could Yang Xiangxiang be willing to give up? Although she was ravaged in the temple, it was only for a girl from a good family. If she was willing to degenerate, the living conditions in Dara Temple were 100 times better than that of an ordinary farmer's family. It was comparable to that of a young lady from a rich family. Although she had to suffer the ravages of the Ying monks in the temple, it was not a shame to her. So how could she be willing to return to that kind of life? Although her parents were still around, and she was not an orphan without a background, but to return to the life of a farmer's family was worse than killing her. She simply threw caution to the wind and used her skills to serve the fake monks, messing up her clothes, letting her hair down, and pouncing towards Chenong. Her pouncing was also a little particular. She could tell that among the 5 people, Chun Ong and Shun Qing'er were the leaders, and Shun Qing'er was a sloppy old monkey. In contrast, Chun Ang's appearance was that of a young man with a red face and white teeth, so he should know who to pounce on without asking. Chun Ong smiled coldly and spread out the Milky Way mana around his body, creating a strong repulsive force around his body. Yang Xiangxiang wanted to pounce on him several times, but she could not get within 10 feet of Chun Ong. Yang Xiangxiang was unwilling to give up. She broke free from Li Ninglai's hand and screamed, "After this, how can I face the world? Since the immortal elder is not willing to accept me, Xiangxiang has nowhere to go. I can only die." As she said this, she rushed towards a stone pillar, intending to touch the pillar and die. Chenong didn't even try to stop her. He just looked at her coldly. Yang Xiangxiang was riding a tiger and couldn't back down. Seeing no one stopping her for a long time, she made up her mind and slowed down her pace, crashing into the stone pillar. She estimated that the strength she used was just enough to cause her to bleed and faint, but definitely not to the point of death. As soon as she touched the stone pillar, Yang Xiangxiang blacked out. Chenong glanced at the woman who was knocked out by Shi's arcane energy and coldly ordered his disciple, "Drag her out." Li Ninglai's face was red. With his martial arts skills, he should have been able to subdue a woman who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. But she hit him with her chest, and Li Ninglai was a sincere gentleman, so she broke free. When she heard Chen Ang's order, she asked 2 of the stronger ones among the group of women to drag her out. Chun Ong said lightly, "Your senior martial brother Li Ninglai is a gentleman, so it's easy for him to be coerced. In my family, there's a special term for this. It's called moral coercion. But I'm not a gentleman. I'm just a cultivator. Towards this kind of discontented person, I'll only let her know the principle of self-improvement I'll never satisfy her. Even if she hits her head and dies here, I won't treat her differently. There are so many matters of life and death in the world. If we care about them all, then what's the point of cultivating as an immortal and seeking the Tao of Balls? As soon as he finished, he shook his sleeves and left with his 3 disciples to deal with the aftermath, and left with Sure, displaying the coldness of a cultivator to the extreme. Chunong had only cultivated once in Ingtian City, but he had already used up 3 days' worth of water vapor within 100 miles, so he didn't dare to cultivate again. It was almost the spring equinox. Rainwater was as precious as oil to farmers, and water vapor was related to the production of countless farmers and commoners. Even the biggest scoundrel in the world wouldn't go so far as to ruin a year's worth of hard work for his own insignificant benefit. It just so happened that with Er's help, the 2 of them dispelled the evil spirits on the 24/9 Mother and Childine Soul Swords. Other than the essence of the 5 metals, the devils, devils, Shi, and the forbidden souls were all dispelled. If it wasn't for Chun Ang's spiritual flame that could refine demons, this hard work would have taken the 2 of them more than 10 days. Longfei's 9 Mother and Childine Soul Swords were one of the best flying swords among the unorthodox sects, and it was passed down from the Wutai sect. In this world, other than Amei, the Wutai sect was the best in the art of refining swords. The Sky Demon Fairy Slaying Sword, 5 Poison Fairy Slaying Sword, and 100 Spirits Fairy Slaying Sword were all famous, and they were the most amazing importations among the unorthodox sections. Other than harming the harmony of heaven, their power was extremely strong, and they were worthy of being the trump card that the master of Hunyuan thought hard about to deal with Amei. Although the evil spirits on the swords were dispelled, and the restrictive spells were broken, the 24 flying swords were still the best sword embryos in this world. As long as Chun Ong refined them with the 7 great true water and practiced the restrictive spells of the Milky Way mana, it would be a set of flying swords that suited him. Cultivators practiced flying swords, and it was the best hard work in cultivation. How powerful was the master of Hunyuan of the Wutai sect? The Wutai sect was also the only sect among the unorthodox sects that could be compared to Amei. They used all their strength, but they still could not practice the Sky Demon Fairy Slaying Sword during the sword fight between the 2 parties. How famous were the 3 deities of the Eastern Sea? In order to refine a golden light, blazing sword that could restrain magic, they also worked hard in the Eastern Sea for many years. One must know that it was not easy to refine a flying sword. Take the essence of the 5 metals that were commonly used in the sword embryos. For example, one might not be able to refine 1 tael out of hundreds of thousands of kilograms of refined iron. It was fine if it was hundreds of thousands of kilograms of refined iron, but how difficult would it be to refine hundreds of thousands of kilograms of pure gold? For example, the 24 sword embryos of the 5 metals in Longfei's hands were extracted bit by bit from the endless magma in the Earth's mantle. As for the cultivation resources in the human world, during the Han Dynasty in the Central Plains, the resources that the nobles could easily use were long squandered by the necromancers at that time, causing the Central Plains to suffer from a shortage of gold. Not to mention the elixirs and resources needed to purify the flying sword to improve its essence and spirituality. There were more than 3,300 elixirs, and it took hundreds of years of hard work by cultivators to collect them. Moreover, they had to use their external skills to offset it, so that they would not be punished by the heavens. As for the cultivators of the unorthodox sects of the Devil Path, they had no external skills to offset, and they were worried that the heavenly punishment would come early, so they could only use the souls and flesh of humans and animals to sacrifice to the flying sword to increase the power and spirituality of the magic forbidden spells on the flying sword. From this point of view, the population was probably the easiest resource for cultivators to collect. If the cultivation of the Devil Path was not afraid of the heavenly punishment, it could be 100 times faster than the cultivation of the righteous path. Just like that. In order to refine this set of 9 child and mother spirit swords, Longfei did not know how much effort he had put in and how many people he had killed. He also had the help of his master, the the Lord of White Bones of the Cave of Gods and Demons of Mount Lu, to successfully refine it. He became one of the few experts among the survivors of the Wutai sect and was not inferior to Faiyuan. Chapter 434. In order to forge a set of suitable flying swords, Chanong made up his mind and didn't even care about the demon refinement light lamp flame that he was refining. This set of demon-slaying treasures that had made him great contributions had its true fire of the sun extracted from it, and its vitality was greatly damaged. This wisp of true fire of the sun was used by Chun Ong to refine the sword embryo, making it even sharper. Different from the original 9-child and mother spirit swords, Chun Ong didn't need powerful restrictive spells, nor did he need the flying swords to carry powerful spells and special vitality, because no powerful spell or restrictive spell would be as terrifying as the one he cast himself. The filth, spiritual light, and ghost restrictive spell were all superfluous to him. The flying swords he needed only had to be strong enough to bear the power of the Milky Way and be sharp enough. For ordinary cultivators, such flying swords were naturally unconventional, but for someone as strong as Chenong, it was the most suitable. In his hands, the sharpness could break all spells, split mountains and seas, and there was nothing that couldn't be cut by the sword. Seeing him being so extravagant that he was actually willing to destroy the only magic treasure in his hand, Chinger couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Fellow Taoist really has the demeanor of our stealing sect, coming fast and leaving fast. Back then, Patriarch had countless good things in his hands, but he gave them all to his friends and disciples. Fine, fine. After eating so many of your pills, this old monkey isn't a stingy person. He took out a handful of silver sand from his 100 treasures pouch and gestured to Chenong. This old monkey doesn't have anything else, but Patriarch left behind 9 tails of Milky Way star sand. This old monkey will add another 2 kilograms of Western true gold, and I'll give it to you to refine into your sword embryo, which will increase your accumulation. Chenong smiled. Fellow Taoist must be joking. This is far more than just an accumulation. Milky Way star sand, Western Tai true gold, seabed 10,000-year cold iron, Western Gung metal primordial essence, Earth core magnetic divine iron, Eastern Tai primordial essence, and so on are the 9 types of true gold that are most suitable for refining swords in the universe. If others could get 1 tael, they would value it as much as their lives. Fellow Taoist has given me so much at once, which I'm afraid is even more precious than the 24 sword embryos that Long Fei refined. Chenong doesn't dare to accept it. Chinger pretended to be angry and said, I have the flying swords left by Patriarch Kong, so what is the point of taking these things? I can't withstand so many years of hard work. Yesterday, when I asked you for pills, you didn't even blink and gave them to me. Today, I'm giving you real gold, which may not be more precious than those pills, but you don't want to accept it? But do you think that I'm not as generous as you and will regret this little thing? Refining for 4 for 2 to be to 1 to combine 4. Sword, but to for fella you have for my 4 for its save 4 for sword. Next year, if I have nothing to do, I will personally come to help you. If I have something to deal with, I will send this treasure over. The old monkey was just thinking about it. He was a magnanimous person and knew that the things in Chinger's hands came and went quickly. He was very generous to his friends and disciples, so he didn't take it to heart. Now that Chenong had pointed it out, he knew that he was going to be entangled in a tribulation silently. His enemies who were entangled in karma with him would come and find trouble with him in the future. Now that Chenong had pointed it out, he knew that he was going to be entangled in a tribulation silently. His enemies who were entangled in karma with him would come and find trouble with him in the future. Unintentionally, he had gotten the help of a strong helper like Chenong. This was also a good karma. Taking the chance when Chenong pointed it out, the old monkey calculated for a while. A hint of clarity flashed in his eyes, and he thanked Chenong. I will need a trouble fellow Taoist for your help. Chenong nodded and said with a smile, Of course, if fellow Taoist is willing, you can take the chance to end your life. In your next life, you will have the hope of attaining enlightenment. The monkey shook his head and said, I had already given up on the hope of attaining enlightenment, but I have a fortuitous encounter in this tribulation. It's hard to make a decision now. It's better to wait for the tribulation to arrive before making a decision. After the two of them spoke, they saw that the sun was about to rise again. Hence, they harvested the purple aura from the east and activated the sun essence true fire to refine the sword embryos. Under the refinement of the sun essence true fire, the 24 sword embryos shrunk day by day. 12 of them were refined by Chun-Ong into a ball and kept in his dantian to be nourished as the embryos for refining treasures in the future. As for the remaining 12 sword embryos, they were refined by Chun-Ong with the sun essence true fire during the day and the moon essence true water at night. The yin and yang water and fire alternated to refine them day by day. 9 days later, Chun-Ong refined 9 tails of celestial river star sand into the sword embryos. Day and night, he used the celestial river magic power to grind and refine the sword embryos. 18 days later, he used the Tai true gold from the west to refine the sword embryos. Every day, he used the sun essence true fire to refine the sword embryos until they were extremely sharp. At night, he refined the sword embryos until they were as soft as water. Time passed from winter to spring. Finally, when the sword embryos were about to be completed, he had to refine 1 primordial waterscape sword every hour for 24 hours a day. The 12 primordial waterscape swords were like a wheel. Every day, there was a cycle, and there was no time for rest. It was extremely tough. If it wasn't for Li Ning and the other disciples who went to the city to purchase fruits and vegetables and sent them up the mountain every day and secretly took over some of the unimportant steps, Chun-Ong might not even have time to catch his breath for 3 months, let alone eat and drink. Until the first thunder of summer solstice, the 12 primordial waterscape swords were refined by the heavy rain drawn by the celestial river magic power. The dense water vapor from the East Sea, the essence of the celestial river, turned into Tiani true water and seeped into the sword embryos. It was in harmony with the celestial phenomenon. Because of this, the sword embryos lost all firepower, and the sword embryos were finally completed. It entered Chun-Ang's head and hid in his dantian to receive the magic power. In the future, as long as he continued to refine it with the 7 types of true water magic power, its spirituality and power would continue to grow. Even now, this set of 12 primordial waterscape swords was one of the strongest flying swords in the world. With the addition of a small fry like the 7-armed Yiksha Long Fei, Chun-Ong only needed 1 sword to slay them. The nature of the flying swords was sharp. In Chun-Ang's hands, it was hard to find a magic weapon that could block it. Ordinary protective magic weapons could not withstand its sharpness. Just a few days ago, Fate Creation Boy, who was lying in ambush beside Wang Ming, sent over the white sun painting of Immortal Bai Yang. Just as Chun-Ong had expected, the key to forming a bond with Immortal Bai Yang was the kingdom of small people near the Wind Cave Mountain. Wang Ming was ordered by Fate Creation Boy to do a few good things for the kingdom of small people. Thus, he formed a bond with Immortal Bai Yang. When he went to look for Bai Yang Ya, he found him easily. When he was learning the painting, he was not driven away by Cui Wugu who was protecting him. Instead, he was guided by this righteous senior and entered the path of cultivation. This scroll of painting had long been sent over by Fate Creation Boy. However, Chun-Ong had been busy refining the flying swords and did not have time to study it. Now he could take advantage of his rest time to integrate the principles of the painting into the foundation of the Milky Way Dharma power. It became more stable and added another layer of mystery to his Dharma power. As for Wang Ming, who had made such a great contribution to Chun-Ong, he continued to be ordered by Fate Creation Boy to fight against the roving bandits in Shaanxi, to protect the great Ming dynasty, and to uphold justice. Now, he had made a name for himself in the martial arts world of Shaanxi. People called him the Crane Feather Sword Wang Ming, Swordsman Wang. It was said that he went against the roving bandits and the people of the Green Forest. He helped the government to defeat the bandits who tried to attack the city several times. Chapter 435. Chun-Ong used the white sun diagram to supplement the Milky Way mana. Another benefit was that the Milky Way mana finally had a rudimentary path. The Milky Way mana was originally a technique used by cult leader Chun from another world to guide the Milky Way. It was derived by Chun Ang's absolute wisdom. There was no rudimentary path to this technique. If one wanted to master it, they would need to have Chun Ang's knowledge and wisdom to immediately achieve the Milky Way mana. This mana was definitely not friendly to beginners. If one wanted to master it outside of Chunong, they would need to be a Buddhist almighty who had achieved the Arhat Tao fruit and obtain a bit of Chun Ang's spiritual knowledge. Then, they would abandon Buddhism and enter Taoism. After reincarnating for more than 10 lifetimes, they would ponder over it day and night, using all the wisdom of their previous lifetimes to comprehend it. Only then, after 12 lifetimes, they would have a chance to suddenly comprehend it and master this Milky Way mana. Obviously, this prerequisite did not exist at all. Now that he had the white sun diagram as a reference, Chunong could calculate the basic Taoist techniques of breathing, meditation, guidance, and meditation. Absorbing a trace of water vapor during qi cultivation, tempering it to match with one's own true qi, and visualizing the 9 crucial Milky Way true talismans, one could transform one's own mana into the Milky Way mana and enter the rudimentary path. Although it was still complicated and difficult, it was still countless times better than the slim possibility before. This basic Taoist technique was the same as the white sun diagram. It was based on guiding qi cultivation. There were a total of 4 levels and 528 human-shaped diagrams. With a set of basic breathing techniques, one could enter the rudimentary path. In the beginning, one had to practice the 24 solar term guiding diagrams from the beginning of spring to the end of great cold. Only then would one be able to transform one's warm water attribute true qi into cold true qi. These 24 diagrams were the most demanding. Not only did they require the practitioner to cultivate true qi, but they also had to conform to the weather. Only in the corresponding solar term could one drive the true qi to transform. This was because if one wanted the human body's true qi to transform into the power of Xianming true water with a trace of extreme cold, one had to rely on the external conditions of the solar term. Only by using the power of nature as one with heaven and man could one survive this tribulation. In other words, under the best circumstances, it would take a year to master this set of guiding breathing diagrams. If there was an unfortunate failure, he would have to wait until the next year. If his aptitude was not good enough, he would never be able to master it in his lifetime. Of course, Chunong had also designed an unorthodox method to cultivate this level. He would bury himself in the extremely cold frozen earth that would never melt for 10,000 years and lay dormant for a month. If he didn't die and came out of seclusion, he would also be able to cultivate this level. As for the second level, the 36 moon breathing guidance diagrams refined the extremely cold nether true qi into extreme yin and softness. The third level, the 108 sea swallowing guidance diagrams refined the extreme yin, cold, and softness true qi into incomparably thick, heavy, and broad. The last level, the 361 sky water guidance diagrams changed the body, refining the clear and turbid true qi in the true qi, visualizing 9 true talismans to cultivate a drop of heavenly river magical power. The obstacles and checkpoints were terrifying. Some of them were even deliberately designed by Chunong. Although they would be useful in the future, there was no lack of intention to make things difficult for others. Chunong's vision was very high. If one wanted to obtain his inheritance, they would first have to shed a layer of skin. Chunong cultivated in this way for another 10 days. Finally, he arranged everything properly. On the last day, he imparted the most important 9 true talismans of the newly cultivated foundation, Tao Book 1 Sky Water True Form Diagram, to his 3 disciples and officially accepted them as outer disciples. This meant that Li Ning and the other 2 were no longer just disciples in name, but had obtained a part of the true teachings. Of course, Chunong had used the advanced experience on Earth to design the levels of inner disciple, true disciple, inner disciple, last disciple, successor, and so on to ensure that everyone could level up. Even if they ascended to become immortals, they could still level up. If Chunong was more ruthless, he could create inner disciples of the lower level, inner disciples of the upper level, inner disciples of the top level, half-step true disciples, and so on. The process would be even more endless. After imparting a part of the true inheritance, Chunong bid farewell and flew to the East Sea on the Sword Light. He crossed hundreds of miles of dangerous mountains and rivers and landed on the shore of the East Sea. The human world of Mount Shu was a huge planet slightly smaller than the Sun. The two poles were separated by 10,936,365 miles, and its volume was about 500,000 times that of the Earth. However, the territory of the established imperial court of the Divine Central Continent was only 10 times the size of the Ming dynasty of the Earth. The rest of the land was filled with endless mountains and rivers. There were countless spiritual birds and strange beasts. Poisonous dragons and giant rocks roamed the wilderness, and mountains higher than 37,951 feet were everywhere. There was also the spiritual realm above the stars outside the atmosphere. The stars in the sky had stars attached to the outside of the planet, and there was also a main star like Mount Shu orbiting countless light years away. The Mars star that Chunong wanted to refine was a satellite that was very close to the planet of Mount Shu. It was much smaller than the main star of Mount Shu, about the size of 500 Earths. Therefore, the East Sea here was not the narrow coastal sea on the Earth. Instead, it was truly boundless. Even if the great Ming dynasty sent 800 treasure ships and fleets, they would not be able to explore the edge of the huge ocean. Because the four seas were calculated with the great Ming dynasty as the center, the four seas were still relatively close to each other. Chunong walked from the coastal sea of the East Sea to the South Sea. He could reach the South Sea in about a month by flying on the sword without rest. If he was willing to use the heavenly stars' shifting technique, he would not even need to take a breath. It could be said that he could reach the South Sea with a mere thought. However, Chunong did not want to use the Dharma shifting technique to be so high profile. He had originally planned to sell a good ship and use the Dharma shifting technique to refine it. He could reach the South Sea in about a year. But now that he had the 12 Yuanshan Waterscape sword, the sword light shifting technique was countless times faster than a ship, so there was no need for that. He could just use the sword light shifting technique. If he felt bored, he could also rest on the islands of the East Sea. Coming out from the seaside, Chunong rode the sword light and flew for a day. Everywhere he looked was a stretch of seawater. Not to mention Chunong, even Macho, who was in his sleeve, found it boring. Other than the boundless water vapor for Chunong to cultivate at will, there was no point in cultivating the heavenly river magic power. He was not afraid that the water vapor would be sucked dry and cause a drought. The strange scenery in the sea, the interesting strange beasts, all passed by in a flash of the sword light. After a long time, it would make people feel annoyed. Chunong saw that from time to time, he could see the giant dragon whale emerging from the sea. Not long ago, he saw a group of sea loaches playing. He thought, why should I be in a hurry? It is rare to come to such a lively world. Why should I rush, afraid that I will miss the plot? The chess piece has been buried, and catching the main god is not a matter of short time. I might as well take a good tour of the mountains and rivers of this world. After 20 years, I will rush back in time. He was still thinking about the calamity of the old monkey during the Dragon Boat Festival next year. He was going to find a sea beast with a huge back that he could ride on. He was going to subdue it and make it his mount, so that he could slowly travel the four seas and enjoy the magnificent scenery of the East Sea. Chapter 436. What Chunong cultivated was the most wonderful water element mana in this world. It was also convenient for him to dive into the sea. Once he wrapped himself with the Milky Way mana, he would dive into the sea. His swimming speed would not be any slower than the whale dragons in the sea. Once he entered the sea, he would be like a fish swimming in water. He would only feel that he could dive deep into the water as he wished. It was as if he was born with this ability, a daffodil in his life. In this world, The sea was 1,000 times more fertile than the land. Chunong had only glanced at the flowers for a few moments, but he had already seen several kinds of extremely precious spiritual herbs on the land. He was not greedy, so he plucked some as he saw them. Taking 3 and leaving 7 would not harm the unity of heaven. Along the way, he also paid attention to sea beasts that were suitable for riding. These sea beasts were not difficult to find. Whether it was a whale dragon with a wide body or a turtle with a flat shell, as long as its back was wide and suitable for living. However, those that Chunong saw either looked down on their small bodies or looked down on their slow swimming speed. He really could not find a suitable one. After all, the sea beasts that met his requirements were too big and were not used to foraging in one place. Otherwise, with their appetite, it would not take long for them to finish an entire sea region. Chunong could not bear to let them forage for food every day. They had to be cultivated sea beasts or species that could not eat for a month. This choice was even more difficult. Fortunately, the scenery in the sea was dazzling. Chunong did not feel bored. Instead, he felt that it was good to continue touring. The sea region in this world is too big. Without the help of the ocean currents, it is almost impossible for mortals to travel. I asked around in Ingtian City. The sea merchants here all count the days and take the ocean currents to do business. The ocean currents are like highways in the sea. Ships can travel with the ocean currents when there is no wind. Their speed is 100 times faster than sailing. Chunong walked towards the open sea. He slowed down along the way. It was obvious in the sea. However, he did not expect that there was a population and civilization on land. There were even countries in the sea. It was just that the sea region was huge and the living environment was harsh. It was especially difficult for fish to reproduce. Even so, there were several sea countries in the East Sea. Their territories were larger than the Great Ming Dynasty. It was just that their population was slightly lower. They were all different species of sea tribes, and it was difficult for them to reproduce. Among them was the Merfolk Kingdom, which was near where Chunong was. It had a vast territory, and with Chunang's actions, they would cross paths sooner or later. After traveling for more than 200 kilometers this time, he discovered a mutated dragon whale in front of him. It had a strong vitality and a wide body, and there was a natural depression on its back, just like a natural mount. Chunong had finally found this kind of sea beast. With a leap, he landed on the back of this dragon whale. The celestial river Dharma power descended and coiled this huge mutated dragon whale up. Chunong was going to suppress this giant beast's resistance, but unexpectedly, this dragon whale was so docile that it didn't even have a temper. Being suppressed by Chunong, it obediently stopped, silently looking at Chunong with a pair of intelligent eyes. Before Chunong could communicate with it, he heard a pleasant voice coming from the belly of the dragon whale. "Why did you stop us? I'm the 6th princess of the Dachongsi nation, and I'm on an inspection tour on my father's orders. May I know which immortal elder is coming? And can you come down for a chat?" Following the direction of the voice, he saw someone grabbing its huge fin from the side of the belly of the dragon whale, and a head popped out. It was a young girl who looked to be about 16 or 18 years old, and her chest was wrapped in a strange kind of silk. Below her waist, she didn't have human legs but a slender tail fin. Other than that, she looked no different from a normal person, just more beautiful. When a young girl saw Chunang's curious gaze, she blushed slightly and said, "Is this the first time you've seen a mermaid, immortal elder?" Chunong smiled calmly and said, "I was born on land, and this is the first time I've been in the sea since I started cultivating. If I've been rude, please forgive me, princess. I stopped the dragon whale just now because I didn't know it had an owner, and I just wanted to find him out." "I see. There are different kinds of dragon whales in the sea, but this kind of hollow, belly red ridge dragon whale was domesticated by us mermaids, and the scattered immortals and sea clans in the sea all know that this is the mount of our royal family. If it wasn't for the fact that my father gave me one, I would have given one to you." The mermaid princess smiled and said, "If a mortal elder is free, why don't you come and sit inside the dragon whale? Other than the scattered immortals who live here for a long time, we mermaids know the sceneries of the sea the best. If a mortal elder is interested, I can tell you one by one. I also want to hear some stories about the land. We mermaids also admire the prosperity of the Ming dynasty. Chenong followed her and saw that there was a soft pouch under the belly of the dragon whale. Someone inside invited him over. Only then did he know that these dragon whales had been domesticated for generations by the mermaid sea nation, and some of them were born with the ability to carry people and things. There were two soft pouches under the belly, just like a monkey's pouch, and they went straight into the belly of the dragon whale. The dragon whale had a special ability. It could eat food that was a few times bigger than its body size. This kind of dragon whale had an even stronger ability. There was a space that was 10 times bigger in its belly, and it was made into a house by the mermaids to carry people and things. However, because of this, the dragon whale needed a kind of precious fish oil to be fed to maintain the consumption of such a huge body size. This kind of fish oil was a rare treasure that couldn't be found on land, and it was also a treasure in the mermaid sea nation. Therefore, this kind of dragon whale was also quite rare in the sea nation, and only the mermaid royal family could use it. The belly of the dragon whale was decorated with seaweed, and the soft seaweed was wonderful to step on. Corals, pearls, strange stones, and seaweed weaved soft pouches. The water inside was up to the chest, and it was the most convenient for the mermaid sea nation to move. The third princess also wanted to let people drain the water to make it easier for Chenong to walk, but Chenong refused. Seeing that he could move as usual and was more used to it than the mermaid sea nation, the third princess didn't force him. The human race is really blessed by nature. The ability of cultivators is 100 times more convenient than the ability of us, the mermaid sea nation. The third princess complimented. Chenong asked in surprise, "Are there no cultivators in the mermaid sea nation? If you can pick one out of 10,000 cultivators in the human race, it would be difficult for us, the mermaid sea nation, to have one even if there are 100,000 or 1,000,000 of them. Especially us, the mermaid sea nation, because of our long lifespan, we live a rich life, and we can exchange many treasures from the Ming dynasty. We lack the heart of Tao, and we can only rely on our natural ability to control water to resist the disasters in the sea. Normal mermaid sea nation are like servants to us, and we won't give them the chance to cultivate. And most of the mermaid sea nation are addicted to pleasure, and they don't have the heart of Tao. The mermaid sea nation doesn't know the language of Middle Earth, and they haven't understood the culture of Middle Earth, so it's difficult for them to cultivate. As time goes by, there are no cultivators, and they don't think much of it. So people like Princess, who admire the Tao of immortality, are actually very rare in the mermaid sea nation." Chenong nodded and said, Chapter 437. In fact, there was no taboo. During the Yellow Emperor's time, Guangqingzi passed down the 9 heavens mystic scripture. Not only did the Yellow Emperor cultivate it himself, but he also taught it to his imperial concubines. Later, they ascended together from the emperor's mausoleum. When they reached the heaven realm, they also cultivated the emperor's fruit of Tao. There was no taboo for their officials and imperial concubines. Even Liu and the Duke of Huainan in the Han Dynasty had the achievement of ascension. However, after the Han Dynasty, cultivators gradually realized that the dynasty's karma was not conducive to ascension, so they gradually faded out of the court. After a few powerful necromancers were dragged down by Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, the process became faster. Until the end of the Song Dynasty, the Central Plains lost the Han Dynasty. How could the cultivators look up to the barbarian court? They were not willing to get involved in the court affairs anymore. As for the relatives of the emperor, after many experiences, cultivators found that they were greedy for power, and the entanglement of karma was difficult to solve. This was not the nature of cultivators. Ordinary cultivators would be burdened for several generations to protect their family members to ascend. The karma of the emperor's relatives was deeply rooted, and it was 100 times more difficult for them to ascend. The only advantage they had was that they were powerful and could collect more resources. However, this would create karma with heaven and earth. Which cultivator would feel that the burden on his shoulders was too light and be willing to bear the burden of the karma of his disciples' family? If there were a few unfilial, stupid, and ill-natured people. Li Jingshu only accepted 2 sinful disciples, but he was forced to not ascend. He had to accept a whole family of disciples. It was like a nightmare. Since Duke Ba accepted Lu and the Duke of Huainan, cultivators knew the nature of these people. They were not willing to get involved with them anymore, afraid that they would be entangled by them. In this world, there are plenty of people who have no parents and no worries. If they can't be a disciple, why should they go and provoke these stinking dogs? Of course, Chenong could not tell her this directly. He said, "You are a stinking dog. I accepted you as my disciple, but you asked me to help your father. Even if I help your father, he will not be satisfied. He also wants to accept your brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews. In the end, the whole mermaid royal family will have to rely on me, and the whole Cheong Sea Kingdom will be on me. Isn't this a little too ungentlemanly?" Although this was the truth, Chenong had to put it in a more tactful manner. Fortune, prosperity, and longevity cannot be the 3 things. People's lives are easy, but not easy can lead to changes. If the fate of your royal clan is complete and unchanging, it would be against humanity. Cultivators are the followers of the heavenly Tao, and the imperial edict is the followers of the human Tao. Celestial beings cannot offend each other. The 3rd mermaid princess said in disappointment, "I see. It seems like Ling Sha is not fated to be with him." The room set up by the mermaids was a soft bag woven from seaweed. The softest and toughest seaweed was used to weave it skillfully. Mermaids were nimble with their hands. The mermaid's silk hanging in the soft pouch was as light as the clouds in the sky. It had no mass in the water. The soft pouch was woven in the same way. Chenong lay on it and felt very comfortable. He could also smell the faint fragrance of the seaweed, which made him feel relaxed and happy. The inside of the dragon whale was like a small palace. Chenong glanced around and realized that the Great Cheong Kingdom was much wealthier than the mainland. Even the Ming Dynasty couldn't compare to it. There were red corals that were 5 to 6 feet tall, glass, pearls, gold, silver, jade, and porcelain. However, this palace was even more luxurious than the imperial palace. The 3rd princess saw that Chenong was admiring the palace and wanted to please him. She asked someone to bring a few bolts of silk and said gently, "Immortal, you've never been to the sea before. The other treasures are just natural treasures. We have the geographical advantage, so there's nothing to brag about. However, the silk of the mermaid is a rare treasure made by our daughter. It can best show the beauty of the daughters of the mermaid tribe. The silk of the mermaid is not extracted from plants, nor is it made by silkworms. It is made by us mermaids. With our natural ability to control water, we extract water and refine it into true water. With our skillful hands, the finished product is as light as a feather and as soft as a cloud. When worn, it won't be affected by cold or heat. It won't get wet in water or burn in fire. There's a phrase in the Ming Dynasty called flawless, which is used to describe our silk of the mermaid." The 3rd princess smiled and said, "Immortal, you've come from afar. Although the sea nation is wealthy, I guess those miscellaneous things won't catch your eye. I have 9 bolts of mermaid silk here, which I made myself. I'll make a Taoist robe for you, immortal." The 3rd princess was indeed an oddity among the mermaid tribe. She was so eager to learn Tao. She had tried to ask Chenong if he could be her disciple, but he had rejected her politely. However, she could tell from Chunang's tone that he was not unapproachable, so there was no possibility of him rejecting her politely. Thus, she made up her mind and hoped that Chenong would teach her some Dharma spells in the future. Although the 3rd princess was a woman, she had more ideas than her brothers, and her vision was higher than her father's. The other members of the mermaid tribe were still obsessed with money and money, but this princess was already prepared for danger in times of peace. Everyone knew that the mermaid tribe was wealthy, but apart from the natural defense of the sea, they didn't have the corresponding ability to protect themselves. Although the itinerant immortals from overseas had good morals and could ensure the peace of the East Ocean from the disturbances of the evil sects, ever since the 3rd palace lord of the Purple Cloud Palace made friends with all kinds of unorthodox sects, the demons in the East Ocean had become more and more rampant, and sometimes they would invade the great Xiongxi nation. Moreover, the humans on land were exploring the East Ocean, and the number of people on the sea increased day by day. The third princess was always worried that the humans on land would have the intention to invade. She told her father about this, but the upper echelons of the sea nation laughed at her, saying that her worries were groundless. The humans on land didn't have the ability to live underwater, so why would they invade? However, the news from her relatives in the South Ocean told the third princess that this wasn't the case. The red barbarian pirates who had settled in the South Ocean a few hundred years ago had started to invade and kill the mermaids of the South Ocean, robbing their wealth and population. In recent years, they had become more and more offensive. The third princess often advised her father, but her father despised her. She had no choice but to find another way, hoping to become a disciple of a wise master, cultivate good skills, and protect the sea nation. Over the years, she had often made friends with cultivators, hoping that they could help the great Xiongxi nation, but there had been no progress. Therefore, when she saw Chenong today, she was especially respectful, hoping that he could learn some Dharma spells and skills to protect the people of the sea nation. Chenong thought to himself, even if she had fallen into her trap, it was still reasonable. Although Chenong didn't want to take this disciple and let the entire sea nation ride on his coattails, he was also quite sympathetic. He didn't want to let her take advantage of him. Moreover, the great Xiongxi nation was very close to the Purple Cloud Palace, so it was an excellent chess piece. Chapter 438. Chenong closed his eyes and sensed for a while. He opened his sleeves and activated the mana of the heavenly river. With a wave of his hand, the 10 pieces of mermaid silk were kept in his sleeves. The mermaid silk made from the true water had a special spirituality. Because of its nature, it was a kind of true water refined by the mermaids. It was the easiest to improve its quality. Chenong only needed to replace any of the 7 types of true water to make a superior spiritual material. However, Chenong didn't care about this. He was more curious about the mermaid's ability to weave. To others, this was the natural supernatural power of the mermaids, but to Chenong, it was a kind of knowledge that could be learned. If he could learn to refine water into silk and weave, with the mana of the heavenly river and the ability to refine the 7 types of innate true water, he could weave a spiritual material that was 100 times better than the mermaid silk. He could even weave it into a talisman that was different from all the talisman refining methods in the world. It was very rare to find a school of its own. Chenong didn't care about other things, but this kind of new thinking and enlightening knowledge could completely arouse his interest. The third princess saw that Chenong was deep in thought with his eyes closed, and his body did not move. After a while, his hands and his sleeves wriggled slightly. After a while, the mermaid's silk shot out from his sleeves. Only then did the third princess turn pale with fright. She had never thought that Chenong would be able to use his bare hands to pull out the thread of water from the mermaid's silk and unravel the seamless silk of the heavenly garment. Tens of millions of waters silk hung in the cuffs of Chenong. He then opened his eyes and smiled. So the mermaid's silk has such a deep meaning. The mermaids felt the Tao of heaven and earth, observed the depth of the ocean, and gradually got close to the water spell. In the end, after countless generations of improvement, the weaving technique was finally close to the waterway, becoming a different kind of water spell. Just a little experience has given me a lot of enlightenment. There is even a trace of the spell to weave all things hidden in it. It is indeed the essence of a race's civilization, is endless and profound. The mermaids who are proficient in this technique can be called water weavers. Mastering the Tao of water weaving is also close to the Tao. Third princess heard this and said in horror, "It's fine if Celestial Master understands it himself. Don't tell others about the secret of mermaid silk weaving. If so, I will really be the sinner of millions of mermaids." Now, nearly half of the mermaids in our Xiongxi nation rely on silk weaving for a living. The lifeline of our nation is tied to this. Please have mercy, Celestial Master. Seeing her terrified and sincere look, Chenong shook his head and said, "You don't have to worry. Even if this method is not a secret, there are not many in the world who can naturally refine true water like you mermaids. At most, a few cultivators can use this to refine a few strange magic treasures. It won't affect the overall situation of your sea nation. Besides, I learned this technique from the mermaid's technique, so I won't harm you. You can rest assured. Chun Ong grabbed the shark's silk in his hand. The sparkling and translucent special true water condensed into a thread, bringing with it a dense aura of water essence. Using the heavenly river's arcane power, Chun Ong extracted a large amount of water essence from the surrounding seawater and refined the shark silk. He calculated that the acquired true water, which was derived from the Tyne true water and the Tiani true water, was the most suitable for weaving. Refining the mermaid silk with the Gue water essence would gradually change its nature, turning it into the acquired true water. Its spirituality would be better. The third princess was shocked and thought, "The cultivators of the mystic door are so scary. They are not something a mermaid like me, who is trapped in the four seas, can understand." I used to hear people say that the Ming dynasty is the center of the world, but I didn't think much of it. I thought that the Ming dynasty was richer than the land, and that there were only a few poor scholars in the Ming dynasty. Now, I know that we are indeed a group of frogs at the bottom of a well. How arrogant! This immortal is the first person from Middle-earth that I've met. He learned the secret of silk weaving, which has been passed down for thousands of years, with a wave of his hand. He can improve it 10 times better than us. If everyone in Middle-earth is like this, what is the Cheongsi nation? She became more and more respectful as she thought about it. After Chun Ong finished washing the 10 bolts of the mermaid's silk, he bundled them in his hand. There was a large pile of materials, but in the end, there was only less than one bundle. It was not that Chun Ong wasted some of the materials, but the fineness of the mermaid's silk became immeasurable after it was washed. Seeing this, the third princess offered to give some more mermaid silk to Chun Ong. She even said, "We may not have enough mermaid silk for now, but there's a lot of mermaid silk, so it won't take us too much effort." "There's no need for that, princess. Don't think that it's just one bundle. When it's connected, it won't be a problem to surround the Chisha mountain where I live, even if it doesn't surround the four seas. It's just that I haven't started weaving it yet," Chun Ong said with a smile. Then, he used the newly learned water weaving technique to weave a water technique from the heavenly river Dharma power into a water caltrip. The water weaving technique was mysterious and unpredictable. It could weave the principles of spells with water, and the finished product would be a Dharma treasure, a physical spell, and a solidified principle, just like how the laws of heaven and earth appeared in natural treasures. It was the fruit of the heavenly Tao that cultivators used their wisdom to imitate. When the final product appeared in Chun Ang's hand, it was a flag. Its brilliance was restrained, and there was nothing special about it. However, the eyes of the third princess, who was watching from the side, lit up. She was also knowledgeable, and she recognized that it was a magical Dharma treasure. The water weaving technique didn't need to start a fire, extract spiritual materials, or wash spirit herbs. After the weaving, it would be a ready-made Dharma treasure. As long as it was refined and nourished in the future, its power would increase. It could be said to be a very convenient Dharma treasure. Although it could only make water element Dharma treasures for now, who knew if Chun Ong would develop it in the future? Moreover, a Dharma treasure with water element was already the most suitable Dharma treasure for mere people. Chun Ong purposely slowed down his speed when he made the Dharma treasure. The third princess was a clever mermaid who was skilled in weaving mermaid silk. She understood at first glance that Chun Ong had intended to succeed. Thinking of this, the third princess knelt on the ground and said in the most respectful manner, "Lingsha, thank you for teaching me this skill." Chun Ong smiled and accepted the bow. After this, Chun Ang's position in the dragon whale changed. From an honorable guest, he became a close teacher of the third princess Lingsha. All his food and clothing were prepared by the third princess herself. Everything was well done. The newly obtained water weaving technique originated from the basic Dharma treasure of the heavenly river. It inherited the true teachings of the heavenly river. When the sky is full of water, the earth is 60% water. Therefore, it was named by Chun Ong as the water weaving technique. It could help the water weaving technique and create the heavenly river. Chunong was inspired by the water-weaving technique. He was thinking about how to integrate the water-weaving technique into the foundation of the heavenly river Dharma power. Just as he was cultivating the heavenly river Dharma power to refine the Dharma treasure flag and verify his research, the huge body of the dragon whale suddenly stopped. It seemed that someone was blocking the way in front of the dragon whale. It was unknown whether it was because the dragon whale was blocked by accident like Chunong or someone was here to cause trouble. Chapter 439. Chunong frowned and decided to kill him. The Purple Cloud Palace was considered a powerful force in the East Ocean in the eyes of the mermaids. But in Chunong's eyes, they were just 3 itinerant immortals born from Tian Yijian's maidservants. They could stay in the Purple Cloud Palace for 500 years because of their fate with Jin Mu, but they were destined to face disaster because of their immoral character. Chunong couldn't tolerate someone who wasn't even worthy of his sword being so arrogant in front of him. As for this unorthodox disciple who borrowed the prestige of the 3 ladies, he wasn't even qualified to enter Chunong's eyes. He was nothing more than a flea. It was only because Chunong wanted to test the 3rd princess, Lingsha, that he allowed him to jump around here. Hearing what he said, the 3rd princess, who was standing next to Chunong respectfully, became livid. She said angrily, "We don't have many mermaids, and the great Xiongxi nation isn't a vassal of the Purple Cloud Palace. How dare they ask for our people? The daughters of the mermaids are not livestock that can be bought and sold at will. Why are they being humiliated like this?" A mermaid next to her tried to persuade her. "3rd princess, the 3 palace masters of the Purple Cloud Palace are powerful cultivators who have achieved the celestial Tao. They also have many powerful sword immortals under their command. They are much more powerful in the East Ocean than the great Xiongxi nation. We can't afford to offend them. They are powerful itinerant immortals who occupy the eye of the East Ocean. It's better to persuade them nicely." How could the 3rd princess not know this? The Purple Cloud Palace was a deity abode of the East Ocean, a top-notch sect among the overseas itinerant immortals. How could a mortal country like the great Xiongxi nation afford to offend them? Even a boy from the Purple Cloud Palace could gain her father's favor, not to mention that someone was holding the talisman of the 3rd palace master of the Purple Cloud Palace. Although the 2 families weren't vassals, the other palace masters and princes of the Sea Nation wouldn't want to offend a deity sect like the Purple Cloud Palace for just 50 mermaids. The person seemed to think so too. Seeing that they didn't reply for a long time, he yelled impatiently, "Stop wasting time. Which prince of the Sea Nation are you? How can you be so unreasonable? Do you know that the 4th prince offered me 10 mermaids with the best voices when he saw me? Our palace master has summoned us this time, but you are to be so late." His words made the 3rd princess tremble with anger. She said while trembling, "4th brother? 4th brother? How dare he? How dare he do this? What does he think the daughters of the Merfolk Kingdom are?" Then she swam out from the belly of the dragon whale. Her pretty face was cold, and she was about to scold him. Unexpectedly, when the man saw her, his eyes lit up and a trace of lust flashed across his eyes. Before 3rd princess could speak, he used his mana to transform into a giant hand and grabbed her. He even muttered, "I think this mermaid is not bad looking. Let's make it up to her. I don't need you to take care of me. The 3rd Palace Master's banquet is in a rush. I've already gathered more than 30 people from your Merfolk village. Just give me another 20. Of Chunov." He sneered, "Watch your skin." Though the 3rd princess had been studying the water-weaving method created by Chunong for the past few days and had made some progress, her mana was still weak. She only had time to weave a cocoon with a thread of real water to protect herself, but she was caught by the big hand formed by the man's mana. He was so anxious that the mermaid who was accompanying him on patrol shouted, Immortal Elder, you've got the wrong person. That's the 3rd princess of the Sea Nation." The man stepping on the jade fire turned a deaf ear to her words. When a noble lady gathered 20 people to exchange for a princess, he would capture all of them and leave. The noble woman had no choice but to beg Chunong, "Immortal Elder, please save our princess." The mermaids at the Ziyun Palace wanted to offer to the Dutch Xiongxi nation have never been released. Furthermore, The people that the three palace masters befriended are not decent cultivators. If our princess goes there, she will definitely suffer. Immortal Elder, please save her for the sake of the princess' hospitality over the past few days. Chenong said lightly. Oh, then why didn't you ask me to help in the beginning? It wouldn't have been difficult for me to get rid of him then, but if I were to help now, I would be afraid of harming the innocent. The noblewoman was so anxious that her forehead was full of sweat. She quickly explained, "It's not that we don't believe in Immortal Elder's abilities, but the dead Xiongxi nation is weak and can't afford to offend Immortal Elder from the Ziyun Palace." Furthermore, before she could explain, Chenong had already activated his sword art, and the 12 elemental waterscape swords floated behind his head. The 12 elemental waterscape swords were a metal and water Dharma artifact, and the sword gleam was also the color of water. It was very inconspicuous in the sea, but it had a similar effect to the great pure invisible sword. However, even if the sword gleam was 10 times or 100 times more conspicuous, the person that Chun'ang's sword gleam would not be able to react. This was because this sword artifact was already one of the best flying swords in the world, and Chun'ang's swordsmanship was also one of the best in the world. Everything had happened too quickly. In the eyes of the noblewoman beside Chenong, it had only been a flash of light behind Chun'ang's head, and the man who was controlling the jade fire had been killed with a single strike. Even his soul had not been able to escape. The jade fire protecting his body had been forcefully slashed open, and only then did they see the sword gleam. Chun'ang retracted the sword gleam and merged it with the 11 halos behind his head. Only then did he ask lightly, "Then, can you still bear the crime now?" The noblewoman opened her mouth, but she couldn't say anything. She didn't dare to speak anymore. Chun'ang had always been humble and polite on the dragon whale. He looked like a righteous, young, and handsome man, which had given them some false impressions. Now, Chun'ang had corrected this false impression. He revealed his indifferent and determined nature and killed the Purple Cloud Palace's emissary, who was unreachable in their hearts, with a single strike. Even if they were 10 times more afraid of the Purple Cloud Palace's power, they didn't dare to say anything at this time. As if from another standpoint, she asked, "They don't dare to offend the Purple Cloud Palace, but do they dare to offend Chenong?" At this time, the third princess finally broke free from the true water cocoon and picked up the 100 treasures pouch that the person had dropped. With a pale face, she came before Chenong and bowed. "Lingsha thanks teacher for saving me. If not for teacher, Lingsha would have been in trouble this time." Chenong said lightly, "Aren't you worried that I killed the Purple Cloud Palace's emissary and brought you trouble?" Although the third princess's face was pale, she still dared to look into Chun'ang's eyes and said firmly, "If we're talking about trouble, it's because I didn't handle it well and brought trouble to the people of the Sea Nation." The third princess knew very well that Chun'ang and the Purple Cloud Palace were people that the great Xiongxi nation couldn't afford to offend. Should she not stand on the side of Chun'ang, who was protecting her, and instead curry favor with the Purple Cloud Palace, who already looked down on her? She had to make the right choice, be it from a rational or utilitarian point of view. The body of the person who stepped on the green fire fell onto the green fire and was burned to ashes. Only the talisman in his hand didn't melt. Instead, it emitted a bright light and flew up. An angry female voice came from it. "Who dared to kill my emissary? How dare you disrespect the 3 phoenixes of the Purple Cloud Palace?" The talisman reached down and was about to absorb Chun'ang's aura. Chun'ang only sneered and flicked a sword energy with his finger. It pierced into the talisman along with the sword aura from the water scenery sword. Chapter 440. This time, the 3 phoenixes sent their disciples out to ask for some mermaids and to entertain 2 of their good friends. They were Fairy Lady Wan Miao, Su Feinyang, and Ancestor Xiankong's disciple, Elder Lingwei. Su Feinyang also brought a few people from the side school for the 3 phoenixes to get to know, including Peach Blossom Fairy Li Yuyu, like Guai Tuchuo, and Sea Swallow Lang Shaoxian. She was injured, so her complexion wasn't very good. However, Su Feinyang noticed it and asked, "Did Palace Mistress encounter any difficulties? You don't look too good." If there are any difficulties, I might be able to help. Sanfeng was originally very concerned about her reputation and would never allow herself to lose so much face in front of Su Fenyang. However, she was truly furious and knew that Chun Ang's abilities were far from what she could handle alone. Thus, she said to Su Fenyang, "Someone just killed my emissary and even ambushed me, causing me some injuries. I'm afraid he is a demon who covets our purple cloud palace. I will not let him go." Su Fenyang knew the three phoenixes' temperament and knew that they were hiding a lot of things. She used her clever tongue to get the truth out of them. She connected the dots and guessed what the three phoenixes were unwilling to talk about and got it right. Su Fenyang was the most quick-witted person. How could she be willing to seek revenge for the three phoenixes? She thought to herself, to be able to injure someone from 1,000 miles away with a sword aura and injure the three phoenixes, this person's cultivation must not be weak. If not for the aura of the talisman, Fong Sanfeng would have been killed by this person. Wu Tai Sect's calamity is not over yet. We must not provoke such a strong enemy. Not only can we not help the three phoenixes, we must also do them a favor. In the future, when I fight a Mei, it will be great if there is such a hindrance. However, it is better to give help in a time of need than to add flowers to a brocade. Why don't I give an idea to the three phoenixes and let her trap that person? I can use this opportunity to do him a favor. She made up her mind and told the three phoenixes that person's spells and supernatural powers are powerful. If we fight with him, even if we win, there is nothing we can do. Why don't we lure him into the divine sand formation and trap him with the formation? At that time, won't I be at your mercy? Although Sanfeng was hesitant, she knew that Chu Feng had set up the great divine sand formation to defend against external enemies. If Chu Feng found out that she was using it to frame the enemy, she would definitely blame her for being a busybody. But in the end, she was still angry. She thought that when the time came, she would kill the enemy in the formation first and lie to Chu Feng that he had come to break the rules. Thus, he made up his mind and began a plan. A few unorthodox disciples did not even have the time to curry favor with her, so they came up with many evil plans to help her. Only Ling Weisho felt that it was inappropriate, but on account of their friendship, he did not say anything to stop her. Chun Ong had killed the emissary of the Purple Cloud Palace. The other people on the Dragon Whale did not dare to criticize him, but they were still afraid of the prestige of the Purple Cloud Palace. Normally, they were scared and kept a distance from Chun Ong. They no longer tried to curry favor with him. Only the third princess knew that they were still close to each other. The Purple Cloud Palace was rich in resources. Jasper flowers and herbs were planted everywhere, Ganoderma trees, as well as rare elixirs such as jade nectar, banana mammoth paste, jade cherry purple marrow. The emissary was very respected in front of the third phoenix. His 100 treasures pouch was rich in elixirs and countless extravagant tools. However, Chenong did not care about these things at all. Among the things that he was interested in, the earthly fortress divine abode in the Purple Cloud Palace was one of them. The heavenly true water that could help him refine his mana was another, and the treasures of the other Golden Mothers and Loose Immortals could only be counted as half of them. This half of it was even counted as a secret treasure that could withstand the heavenly wind and tribulation fire among the treasures. The rest were like rubble that he did not have to worry about. The third princess had encountered a disaster. She remembered her fear and helplessness when she was taken away. Other than the water-weaving technique that Chenong taught her, her status and power were completely useless. She immediately understood the principle of constantly improving herself and took a step forward in her heart of Tao. She knew how afraid her father and brother were of the Purple Cloud Palace, so she changed the direction of the Dragon Whale and went to the territory of one of her sisters. She was even more respectful to Chenong on the way. She took the elixirs and rare elixirs stored in the Dragon Whale to please Chenong. On the Dragon Whale, Chenong rarely went out because of the difference between men and women. He only cultivated his mana in the soft bag that he lived in. Since he came to Donghai, he had also overcome the last restriction of the Milky Way's mana. He refined 43 drops of Tiani water in 10 days, and his mana had another change. Now, The Milky Way's mana had refined two types of water. Although it had not been transformed yet, because of the short period of time, it had improved a lot. After cultivating in the sea for 10 days, the progress of the Tiani water was almost as good as the result of the 5 months of cultivating the Taiyin water. It was only then that Chun Ong truly understood the difference in the influence of the place of cultivation. He thought to himself, this difference is more than 10 times. It seems that if I want to achieve great success in the Milky Way's mana, the 7 types of water must be refined in the most suitable environment. The Tiani water is still fine, as it is the accumulation of the essence of all water. It will be fine as long as it is a place with sufficient water essence. Donghai is quite suitable for my cultivation. Why don't I also open a residence in the sea? Not only will I have a place to stay, I won't have to wander around. Not only will it be inconvenient for cultivation, but it will also be inconvenient for me to conduct research and plant elixirs and rare herbs. In the future, if I don't stay in the sea for long, I can pass it down to my disciples in this world. It could be considered as leaving some assets for them. With this thought, Chun Ong started to consider it. Purple Cloud Palace was originally a very suitable place, but the 3 owners of this immortal manor were all closely related to Amei. As the residence of Master Lian Shan, it was the old residence of Mother Earth 1,000 years ago. Mother Earth had gifted Purple Cloud Palace to Taoist, long-browed Taoist, and left a message in the crystal pillar explaining that the original owner of this manor, Mother Heaven Yi Jin, had also left Purple Cloud Palace to Taoist, long-browed Taoist due to a favor. This was a house that was considered to be under Amei's ownership. Even though the 3 women of Purple Cloud Palace had a relationship with Purple Cloud Palace for 500 years due to their relationship as maids under Mother Heaven, the ownership was clear. If it wasn't for Amei's cowardice and not being open and aboveboard in their actions, they wouldn't have been criticized by others. For example, there was a courtyard house in Beijing. Amei's ownership was the old owner, but due to some matters, the house was occupied by the servants of the previous owner. After the liquidation was completed, you could just take the house ownership certificate to ask for it back. If there was a dispute, you could go to court for a lawsuit, sword fight. You could just ask for the house back. However, they sent their own children to borrow soy sauce. After they were slighted, they barged in. Because someone had ulterior motives and wanted to plot against them, they broke one of the cat's legs. In the end, the 2 families had a falling out and the house was taken back. Even though it was reasonable, it was not the right way. This kind of ownership was not clear. Not only were there people who didn't have ownership, but there were also people who had ownership of the house. Chun Ong just wanted to have a foundation in the neutral sea, so he would never get involved in such trouble. Not to mention that Mother Heaven was still in the heaven realm and hadn't crossed the tribulation yet. The original owner of the house was still there. If he didn't want to get involved in karma, it was better to hide as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would be like Lian Shan, who had to use his lost body and hidden treasures to offset karma. In the human world, the ownership of this house was not clear, but in Mother Heaven, karma was extremely clear. Lian Shan and Mother Heaven were tenants who borrowed the name of Amei to live here. Later, they left behind a bunch of hidden treasures on Moon Island as rent. Because of their previous friendship, the 3 women of Purple Cloud Palace temporarily lived here for 500 years. Qi Ling Yun and the others, who had crossed the tribulation, were disciples of Amei. Moreover, with the promise from Longbrow Immortal, they were the owners of the Immortal Mansion. Chenong understood this karma. As long as he didn't want to get involved with Mother Heaven, he shouldn't have any ideas about the Immortal Mansion, unless he could take Qi Ling Yun and the others as his disciples, or simply find the reincarnations of Mother Heaven and the 5 daughters of the past, and take them as his disciples. He wouldn't be able to compete with Amei for the ownership of the Immortal Mansion. It was so complicated. Chenong was not any weaker than Mother Heaven, so why didn't he open another Immortal Mansion? Even though he needed to spend some time to manage it, it was better than participating in countless entanglements. Moreover, some of Chun Ang's laboratories needed to be modified by himself. Purple Cloud Palace might not be more convenient than his newly opened Immortal Mansion. Why should he get involved in this? In the ocean, there were earth veins and water veins. On the land, the mountains and rivers were shaped like dragon veins. Most of them were spiritual mountains and blessed lands. In the ocean, there were earth veins and water veins. The earth veins were different. If the earth veins were not spiritual mountains under the sea, they would be underwater canyons, islands, and rocks. For example, Siankong Island and algae fishing. Chapter 441. In the past few days, Chun-Ong had also observed some of the underwater earth veins and slowly deduced the EC's water veins and earth veins. He had a plan in mind and thought, there are 2 or 3 places in the EC that have all the earth veins and water veins like the Purple Cloud Palace, but most of them are occupied by the itinerant immortals of the EC. I'm not the only one in the world who knows how to look at the geomancy of the sea. There are also some itinerant immortals overseas who have a long history, so why wouldn't they occupy them? However, there are still 2 places that are empty. The remaining places are either occupied by evil beasts or evil spiritual energy. There is no place for creation. I think the cold spring in the South Sea is fine. Although there are a group of 3-star beauty phantoms, this place is spacious and there is a cold spring. It is the most suitable place for me to practice. Not only can I refine the Tianyi True Water, but I can also refine the Xianming True Water. Otherwise, I will have to open a cave abode in the North and South Poles. Although the sea I was far away in the South Sea, it was near the shore and not far from the EC. Chun-Ong was heading to the South Sea, so he could go there. As for the 3-star beauty phantoms, Chun-Ong had his own place for them. If they were ordinary evil beasts, it would be fine to get rid of them. However, there were many of these 1,000-year-old beauty phantoms, and they were very intelligent. They hid in the sea all year round and did not fight with others. They only used their inner cores to absorb the cold air in the sea's cold spring and refine the inner cores with the essence of the enigmatic mother. They had the merit of suppressing the cold spring and preventing the South Sea from freezing. Killing them would hurt the harmony of the world, so Chun-Ong could not bear to do it. Although taking the enigmatic matriarch essence from the beauty puppet's inner core could help Chun-Ong refine the nether true water, Chun-Ong was not willing to ruin the lives of this group of beasts that stood aloof from worldly affairs for a moment of pleasure. He could also take them in as his disciples and test subjects for Chun-Ong to practice yin and yang, transform into all things, and explore the path of creation. He asked the 3rd princess to change the course of the dragon whale to the South Sea while he continued to cultivate the heavenly river dermic power and increase the Tianyi True Water. The 3rd princess naturally obeyed Chun-Ang's order. However, when she turned around, she secretly sent someone to tell her sisters the location of the dragon whale. A few days later, a mermaid secretly boarded the dragon whale and met up with her. This mermaid was one of her best friends. The 2 of them had once agreed to leave the sea to seek immortality together. Although they were unable to set off for some reason, they still missed each other. Now that they had the chance to become immortals, they couldn't help but want to share it with their sister. Chun-Ong was right about her. He knew that the 3rd princess was a sentimental person and couldn't be as heartless as a cultivator. That was why he didn't agree the first time. He didn't want the entire Great Xiongxi nation to drag him down. He knew about the 3rd princess's actions, but he turned a blind eye and pretended that he didn't know anything. One day, Chun-Ong deduced another magical effect of the Tianyi True Water that he had just cultivated. He was in a good mood because his understanding of the true water had improved. The 3rd princess was very perceptive. Seeing that Chun-Ong was interested, she took the opportunity to kneel on the ground and begged, "Teacher taught me the water weaving technique. I kowtowed in fear to thank you and didn't dare to have greedy thoughts. However, I've always been envious of the foundation of the mystic door. I want to be greedy and ask teacher to teach me the foundation so that I can have the hope of becoming an immortal. Teacher, please take pity on me and teach me the right path." After saying that, she kowtowed on the ground and begged. Chun-Ong saw that she was determined to pursue Tao and sighed in his heart. "I wanted to teach you the Dharma spell to defend yourself and defeat enemies because of our fate. I hope that you would be safe and enjoy the riches of the Sea Nation. However, you are biased towards the Tao. How can the Tao be obtained so easily? If you become my lab rat, you will have the hope of achieving Tao and ascending to immortality in the future. However, if you are not careful, your soul will be destroyed. Why bother? He said bluntly. Do you know that the fundamental path of mana is different from spells? There are many difficulties and obstacles, such as the great trial of immortals every 500 years, the great trial of Earth immortals every 2,000 years, and the great trial of time sequence of 4999, etc. Even if you cultivate Tao alone, you will have to face the internal tribulation of wind and fire and the dangerous external tribulation of devil, the tribulation of love, the tribulation of swords and weapons, and the tribulation of evil karma. Those who can achieve the right path are rare even in the orthodox mystic door, and it is rare to see one in 100 years in the unorthodox sections. With the water-weaving technique that I taught you, you have the ability to be free and unfettered. With your age, it is not difficult for you to enjoy 300 years of wealth. Many people in the unorthodox sects do not live as long as you, not to mention the many hardships that cultivators have to go through. They live in fear and are exhausted. They are not as free as you. Let me tell you the truth. Do you still want to beg? Chunong questioned. If you know when to advance and when to retreat, I will give you the treasure of true water for the sake of our friendship. You can use it to capture and kill those demons. If you continue to cry and beg, you will have to go through a lot of training. If you are not careful, you will lose your life, let alone the fate of master and disciple. Third Princess Lingsha heard him and quickly said, Teacher, Lingsha does not want to be free and unfettered. I only want the right path for eternity. In this way, I am not afraid of all the hardships. I only ask for your mercy. Chen Ong heaved a long sigh and said, Fine. Since you have made up your mind, I will teach you the 24 solar terms guiding chart and a refining method of a true water vessel. First, you will be my nominal disciple. When you have completed the 24 solar terms guiding chart and successfully refined the light age cold painting that I have taught you, come to me to teach you all the one sky water true form painting and become an outer disciple. Chun Ong snapped his fingers and a spiritual light flew out from his sleeve and imprinted on the top of her head. He then touched the mermaid silk next to her and a drop of Xianming true water instantly refined it. Each strand was like ice silk. Chun Ong used the water-weaving technique to make it into a jade silk vessel and gave it to Third Princess to practice. In the future, Third Princess would probably be a lab rat for Chun Ong to deduce the mystery of Xianming true water. It was also because of Chun Ang's benevolence that, in consideration of her past respect, he didn't make her like Wang Ming, who had to try out the most dangerous demonic arts. Instead, like Li Ning and the other two, she was given the cushy task of being the 7 true water trial mice. The younger sisters of the Third Princess were dumbfounded. They watched as the artifact of the light, Ji Hana, stretched slightly in midair. For the 500 feet under the sea, it actually summoned a snowflake that slowly swept over a radius of more than 100 feet. The mermaid race had countless treasures, but the only one that could be considered a Dharma treasure was a bracelet that the Mermaid King had collected. He had used many treasures from the Great Xiong Kingdom to please an itinerant immortal who came to look for medicine, and he had obtained it. It was a Dharma treasure that was used by women. He wore it on his wrist and never took it off. Even so, countless princesses of the Sea Kingdom coveted it. Even some princes were as shameless as the Mermaid King and wanted to get their hands on it. Someone like the Third Princess, who was not favored by the Mermaid King, did not even need to think about it. Even if she was the Mermaid King's favorite concubine, he would only be able to borrow her for a night if he liked her. Even Shenong was considered a Taoist with many treasures, not to mention the Amei disciples. He was extremely generous. The mermaid watched as the Third Princess happily put away the Dharma treasure embryo and looked at Chun Ong with a burning gaze. Before she could think of an excuse to speak, she was interrupted by a shout. Someone barged in and shouted, "Third sister, did you offend the immortal master of the Purple Cloud Palace? How dare you? Why aren't you apologizing to me now? Do you know how much trouble it will bring to the Sea Kingdom if you offend an immortal sect like the Purple Cloud Palace? Chapter 442. The fourth prince of the great Xiong Sea nation's face darkened, and he said coldly, "How dare you talk back? You can't even afford to let go of such a small matter. The Purple Cloud Palace is very important to the great Xiong Sea nation. If they're willing to protect us and even teach us a few techniques to live forever, let alone a few mermaids, even you princesses would be willing to do so, let alone the servants." The fourth prince sneered. "Don't say that I don't take care of you. If father finds out, you won't be able to protect yourself. If the three palace lords of the Purple Cloud Palace are still angry and insist that you go to the palace to be a plaything, father will definitely agree." The third princess was so angry that her lips trembled. What she couldn't accept the most was not the fourth prince's words, but a fact that she couldn't accept. Based on her understanding of the king of the merfolk, what her fourth brother said was very likely to happen. The third princess's heart was filled with anger, fear, sadness, and disgust. It was as if a jar of vinegar had been knocked over, and the expression in her eyes was complicated and indescribable. Chenong listened to them. He naturally didn't care about the messy family affairs of the merfolk royal family. He was thinking more deeply. The merfolk kingdom's affairs were at most the aftermath of the conflict between Chenong and the Purple Cloud Palace. The real decisive factor was never in their control, not even in the Purple Cloud Palace's control, but in Chun Ang's hands. Currently, only Chenong, the three phoenixes, and the mermaids on the dragon whale knew that Chun Ong had killed the people of the Purple Cloud Palace. Now that the fourth prince of the Merfolk Kingdom had found out about it and came looking for them, he didn't seem to know the inside story. Under Chun Ang's watch, the mermaids on the dragon whale naturally couldn't spread the news. Therefore, it was obvious how the fourth prince had gotten the news. Only the three phoenixes could have leaked it. In this way, they could vaguely see the tale of the three phoenixes' plan. The fourth prince of the Sea Kingdom looked at the third princess and said coldly, "We're siblings, and I can't bear to see you end up like that. Let me mediate in the middle, and this matter may be resolved. Listen carefully. Although the Purple Cloud Palace has three palace lords, they cultivate in seclusion all year round. Aunt Dong Xiao is the one who manages the palace affairs. If you can please her, she'll make up for this small mistake." The third princess listened to him boasting and sneered in her heart. How could a mere Dong Xiao turn the tables on what my master did? So what if she had the backing of the third palace lord? Shizhuan slashed her with his sword, but she didn't dare to come over to take revenge. Instead, it was you who rushed ahead. Even if he is scheming, so what if he is favored by father? Master didn't need to look at anyone's face, nor did he need to rely on anything, but who would dare to look down on him? In the past, I have seen many benefits of power and wealth in the Sea Nation. With a single order, countless people would become my wings and be at my beck and call. Only today did I realize that the freedom of a Taoist cultivator far surpasses that. Endless wealth and earth-shattering power, but after hundreds of years, they will turn into a handful of dust. Only like the bright moon in the sea, eternal and inextinguishable, free and unrestrained, is the result that I pursue. He then heard the fourth prince nagging. I have some friendship with a few immortal masters of the Purple Cloud Palace. They are all people who have a say in front of Aunt Dong Xiao. As long as you give them some benefits and follow me to make some arrangements, you'll definitely be able to get an audience with her. Aunt Dong Xiao is a good person. If you behave in front of her, you may not be unable to get through this." The third princess smiled slightly and said, "Enough, fourth brother." She smiled brightly, revealing a very moving smile. The fourth prince was stunned, not knowing what had happened to her. He only heard the third princess say with a smile, "Fourth brother only knows that I offended the Purple Cloud Palace. But do you know how I became enemies with them?" She straightened two fingers on her right hand into the shape of a sword and gestured in front of him. She chuckled softly and said, "That emissary saw that I looked good and wanted to take me away. Coincidentally, my Shizhuan was right beside me, so I killed him with a sword." She gestured at her neck with her right hand and said fiercely. After that, she wrinkled her nose proudly. Seeing the fourth prince's dumbfounded expression, he laughed even louder and said, "After that, the third palace mistress of the Purple Cloud Palace flew to Fu Zhao to denounce her, but my teacher stabbed her in the heart from 1,000 miles away. I reckon that she still hasn't recovered yet. Fourth elder brother, do you still want me to apologize?" After that, he ignored him and bowed in front of Chunong. "Does Shizhuan have any instructions?" At this moment, the fourth prince finally noticed Chunong. When he heard the third princess's words, his expression changed, and he hurriedly said, "You are just a lone, loose cultivator. How dare you provoke such a powerful force like the Purple Cloud Palace? So what if your magic power is stronger than the third palace lord? The Purple Cloud Palace still has 2 palace lords, and their magic power is even more powerful. They also have many good friends and countless immortals. How can you resist them alone? Didn't you implicate the Sea Nation? Third sister, don't be stubborn." His words were sincere and very anxious. Chunong laughed and said to the third princess, "Let's go, disciple. I'll bring you to see the Purple Cloud Palace's lineup. I'll let you know the basic principles of a cultivator. In case you become like the Purple Cloud Palace in the future, having the delusion that there is strength in numbers and protecting a large number of disciples in the future, provoking a killer like Li Yingxiong and having your entire family destroyed with a sword, it will be a disgrace to me. In that case, I might as well send you to the tribulation personally." At this point, Chunong sneered and said, "There is strength in numbers. If you don't use the right method, you will only be like a large group of small fish becoming food for others." After saying that, he waved his sleeves and took the third princess to his side. He also brought the fourth prince into the sword gleam and instructed the others, "You guys set up camp here for the time being. I'll be back soon." Then he leaped onto the sword gleam and headed in the direction of the Purple Cloud Palace. This time, the 3 phoenixes of the Purple Cloud Palace did not alarm the 2 sisters. They quietly calculated and prepared many strategies. With the help of a few people from the side sex, they came up with many cunning and vicious plans. The fourth prince of the Great Xiongxi Nation was part of their plan. Originally, they had calculated that regardless of whether Chunong was afraid of the prestige of the Purple Cloud Palace or not, he would still follow the fourth prince to the Purple Cloud Palace. Then, there were many secret plans. For example, they plotted against the third princess and made her suffer from a poison curse that could only be alleviated by the Purple Cloud Palace's elixirs. Or they directly kidnapped the third princess to the Purple Cloud Palace, or they used the people of the Mermaid Sea Nation to threaten Chunong and force him to go to the Purple Cloud Palace no matter what. However, Chunong was not in the mood to play these games with them. He silently used his primordial spirit to calculate and locked on to their auras. He did not even use his mental strength to calculate those plans, and Poison Kata did. Instead, he guided the fate of those people from the side sex and triggered the tribulation in advance. He made himself their external tribulation and determined their fate to face the tribulation. Chapter 443. Apart from Fairy Lady Wan Miao, Su Feinyang, and San Feng, who were plotting against Chunong, the unorthodox figures were all at the entrance of Purple Cloud Palace, at the entrance of the 3,000-li Divine Sand Formation, welcoming Immortals Island. There were also 2 disciples of Purple Cloud Palace standing guard there. One was Yang Li, who had disguised herself as Wei Rong and was hiding in Purple Cloud Palace to rescue Lu Rongbua. The other was Wu Fan. Originally, apart from Su Feinyang, who was quick-witted and knew how powerful Chunong was, the rest did not pay much attention to him. Taking advantage of Su Feinyang's absence, the monk sneered, "He's just an ordinary itinerant immortal. Yet Feinyang values him so much. I know all the powerful figures in the Central Plains and overseas, but I've never heard of this Chunong. If it were up to me, I would have taken the black sandbag and ambushed him. I could have taken his head with a shovel. Why bother using this divine sand formation?" Peach Blossom Fairy Liuyu covered her mouth and laughed. Fairy Lady is a cautious person and has her own plans. Moreover, Third Palace Master did not object. "Back then, you didn't volunteer yourself, but now you're boasting in front of me. Looking at her seductive appearance, the head monk with Lai Guai was lustful. Holding the crescent moon shovel upside down, he shouted, "By offending the San Gong Zhu, he is seeking his own death." How formidable is that Jinhai? The Yin fire pouch can burn mountains and boil seas, and the power of the husband and wife can shake the entire southern sea. Wasn't such a powerful figure eliminated by Third Palace Master? That Chenong is only a third-rate sword immortal. He might not even be able to block my shovel. Just watch. I'll most likely be able to take his life this time. It was not because the monk was careless, but because the three phoenixes felt that they had lost face. They covered up the process of Chun Ong injuring her in every possible way. He was not a clever person like Su Feinyang, so naturally he could not tell how powerful Chun Ong was. Moreover, there were only a limited number of cultivators in the world. A powerful figure had cultivated for hundreds of years, or several lifetimes, and was already known to the world. There had never been a freak like Chun Ong who suddenly emerged from the ground in the name of a senior who had reversed the calamity. It was no wonder that he was careless. Over here, Lai Guai was plotting something bad. He desperately bragged to Li Yuyu, saying that Chun Ang's arrival was also because of his bag of divine sand. He also said that Su Feinyang's action was unnecessary, that Chenong was not his match at all. After bragging for too long, it was easy to see ghosts. At this time, a sentence was heard by everyone on the island. "Fellow Taoists, have you made up your mind to make things difficult for me?" The unorthodox school was in an uproar. They looked towards the direction of the voice and saw Chun Ong emerging from the surface of the sea on a sword light. He stopped in midair above the island and asked the people below with a stern expression. Chun Ong brought his disciple and fourth prince here not to resolve this misunderstanding. He only asked the people below out of politeness. After all, the heavens had the virtue of cherishing all living things. Even if they sent him a killing tribulation with no chance of survival, there should still be a slim chance of survival. If there were people below who were merciful, so what if they were spared? Unfortunately, there was no one. The people below looked as if they were facing a great enemy. Only the monk with the crutch laughed and said, "Heaven had a path, but you didn't take it. There was no door to hell, but you came. Do you think killing a rough disciple of Ziyun Palace is considered a skill? Which one of us here doesn't have magic power 10 times stronger than you? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You're courting death." Originally, the monk with the crutch was still a little apprehensive. Now that Chun Ong was standing in front of him, he thought he could see through him. He wasn't even an itinerant immortal, so why would he have any scruples? In Ziyun Palace, even a servant, Lu Rongbua, had an itinerant immortal's fruit of way. Even though Chun Ong was a top swordsman below an itinerant immortal, there were more than 3 people on the island who had an itinerant immortal's fruit of way. No matter what, he didn't think he needed to be careful or worried. The other unorthodox school people were very cautious at first, but when they saw Chun Ong like this, they felt at ease. Li Yu stretched out her hand to stop the monk with the crutch who was itching to try. She covered her mouth, and her eyes were half opened with a seductive look. She didn't think much of Chun Ong at all. She only took it as a joke and said with a smile, "If I insist on making things difficult for you, what can you do, little brother?" Chun Ong nodded slightly and said again, "I'm here to resolve this cause and effect. If we cultivators can't resolve the cause and effect itself, then we'll resolve the person who caused it. I'll kill all of you, and it'll be considered over for me." His words made the unorthodox school's sword immortals on the island laugh out loud. Only the fourth prince was a clever person. When he heard the murderous intent in Chun Ang's words, his expression changed slightly. He said, "This is the Ziyun Palace's place to welcome guests, and also the entrance to the immortal abode. You can't behave atrociously here. What's the big deal?" Chun Ong asked in return. The 12 Moons waterscape, sword beside him, had already split into 3 sword gleams. Peach Blossom Fairy Li Yu smiled coquettishly, and a pink miasma rose from her body. She stepped on the miasma and hid behind the monk with the crutch. A peach blossom flying knife flashed on her body, and she was about to chop off Chin Ang's head. However, The waterscape sword gleam was silent and spread out like a soft cloud. It was long and flexible, and it was extremely flexible. The peach blossom 7 demons, enchanting net, that flew out of Peach Blossom Fairy Nun's body not only couldn't wrap around the flying sword, but it also split into thousands of pieces and passed through the eye of the net like a cloud. The 2 flying swords were like horns, and they were connected from head to tail. The Peach Blossom Flying Knife and the Peach Blossom 7 Demons, enchanting net, were cut into pieces by the sword gleam. They lost their spiritual chi and fell down like ordinary iron. Li Yuyu's expression suddenly changed. When she saw the sword gleam turn again, she hurriedly pushed the monk with the crutch in front of her out to block the disaster. Even though Chan Ong wasn't serious, the sword gleam wasn't something that a few loose immortals of unorthodox level could withstand. In his confusion, the monk with the crutch was killed by the sword gleam before he could even use the treasured weapon in his hand. Li Yu didn't even manage to escape 3 steps before she was cut into 2 by another sword gleam. She didn't even have the chance to pull out her primordial spirit. As the abandoned disciple of the Red Body cult's Granny Jiopan, she didn't even have the chance to use 30% of her abilities in front of Chenong before she died a violent death. Chenong didn't even spare a glance at the other loose immortal from unorthodox level Lang Shaoxian. With a swish of the sword gleam, he was sent to meet his doom. Wu Pan was originally fawning on them, but when he saw their end, he was scared out of his wits. He screamed and fled toward the holy sand formation behind him. It would have been better if he hadn't moved, but once he moved, the sword gleam in the air changed and killed him as well. Only Yang Li, who didn't want to mingle with these unorthodox cultivators, stayed far away from them and escaped the disaster. He originally thought that it was a senior from the righteous path, so he wanted to secretly inform Chenong about the unorthodox plot. However, after witnessing Chan Ang's murderous nature, he didn't have the thought of meeting this senior from the righteous path anymore. Instead, he tried his best to hide himself, afraid that this senior would kill him and Lu Rongbua as well when he got excited. The 4th Merman Prince watched Chan Ang's sword gleam rise and fall, and his killing was decisive. He didn't know the cultivation level of these people, but he thought they were the servants of the Purple Cloud Palace. He murmured, "How dare you do this? You brought trouble to us mermaids. You showed off your power at the entrance of the Purple Cloud Palace. Even if we let you escape, there are many powerful immortals in the Purple Cloud Palace. How could they let us, the Cheongsi nation? It's over, it's over. If the Grand Palace Master of the Purple Cloud Palace comes out from seclusion, you won't be able to escape." Chun Ang's sword gleam flowed through the immortal Yingzhan Island like flowing water, forcing out a dim sword gleam that flew into the air and escaped. It affected Chun Ang's sword gleam. Someone inside shouted, "Chun Daoyu, I didn't make things difficult for you. I didn't agree with their plot at all. I'm Ling Weisho, a disciple of the Xiankong Island's patriarch. Please spare my life for the sake of my patriarch. I won't make things difficult for you anymore. Please spare me." Chapter 444. From the moment Shen Ong landed on the welcoming deity island, many people in the Purple Cloud Palace knew about it. However, First Phoenix was cultivating in seclusion, so all the affairs in the palace were managed by the 2 palace lords. Second Phoenix was someone who didn't pay attention, so the person in charge of the Purple Cloud Palace was Third Phoenix and Third Palace Lord. Shen Ong was ordered by Third Palace Master. How could the rest of the people dare to interfere in the fight between the itinerant immortals of the unorthodox sects on the island? Therefore, they only used the talisman to inform Sanfeng. They didn't dare to tell Sanfeng, Jin Shu Nu, and the others. Moreover, other than Lu Rongbua, Yang Li, and Long Lizi, who had a good temperament, the rest of the people in the Purple Cloud Palace were arrogant and looked down on the itinerant cultivator from overseas. Later on, when Chun Dan killed people as if he was chopping vegetables, his methods were incomparably cruel. Even an unorthodox expert like Ling Wei so had to beg for mercy. Only then did these people realize how powerful he was. Lu Rongbua was quick-witted. Although she was worried about Yang Li's safety on the immortal welcoming island, She also knew that it was best to go to the golden bearded slave at this time. Therefore, she quietly went to the golden bearded slave while others were not paying attention. The others were just panicking and waiting for Sandfong to come back. The most decisive one was to use the passage of the divine sand to provoke Chenong, trying to trick him into going in to make a contribution. The scenery on Yingjian Island was beautiful. Chenong landed in the courtyard of the island with the third princess and the fourth prince. Seeing that the fourth prince was still stretching his neck and waiting for death, he asked his female disciple with a smile, "Does your fourth brother have a name?" Before Princess Lingsha could answer, fourth prince said coldly, "My name is Jiaoli. You Taoists think you're brave, but you don't know your place. The sea is vast. If you leave with my third sister now, you still have a chance to live. If you delay any longer, no one in the four seas of the divine continent can save you." Chenong just smiled and asked curiously, "Why do you say no one in the four seas of the divine continent can save me? Even though Purple Cloud Palace is powerful, she can still intimidate us in the East Sea. How can she make things difficult for me in the prosperous land of the divine continent?" Prince Jiao Li sneered, "You really are an ignorant country bumpkin from the great Ming dynasty. I know there's a saying in the Central Plains called arrogance. You are quite similar to this. How many experts could there be in the Central Plains? Those so-called famous experts in the Southern Sea were nothing more than people from the school of miscellany. I've also entertained a few Taoists from the Central Plains. Maishan Orthodox lineage or Maoshan lineage. They're just third-rate itinerant cultivators in East Sea. They only know some illusory spells and miscellaneous spells. You're invincible among these people, and they flatter you. Do you think that the Eastern Sea can let you run wild? Do you think you are a loose immortal? Even if you're a loose, immortal Taoist, do you know how many immortal swordsmen there are in this Purple Cloud Palace? Do you know how many of the immortal elders who come and go are itinerant immortals? The three palace lords were all itinerant immortals, the number one sect of the four seas, much stronger than the Central Plains. You've just arrived, so you don't even know this. How dare you kill people at their doorstep?" Prince Jiao Li's words were heart-wrenching, as if he was weeping blood. However, Chenong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "The Purple Cloud Palace is the number one sect in the four seas? Could it be that East Deity Island's Zhenyu Palace's Zhenyu Divine Lord and his wife, Zhuoyuo Island's Divine Nun Xenru, and Ao GEC's deities are all dead?" Prince Jiao Li said in surprise, "I've never heard of these unorthodox sect you're talking about. I'm afraid they're just some third-rate cultivators who are famous in your Central Plains." Chen Ong chuckled and said, "Then you haven't heard of North Sea's Xiankong Island's Xiankong Patriarch, Crimson Cloud Palace's Jellyfish Ji Xian, Great Wilderness's Canopy Mountains, Spiritual Empress Palace's Chi Staff Immortal, South Sea's Copper Coconut Island's esteemed Tian Chi, Mystic Tortoise Palace's Izhou, Tian Qian Mountain's Young Man, and West Sea's Grinding Ball Island's Lizhu Palace?" Prince Jiao Li shook his head and said, "I've heard of Xiankong Patriarch. He's a famous immortal in North Sea. I'm afraid the others don't live up to their reputations." Chun Ong shook his head and said, "Then who are the mystic door orthodox sects and diabolism masters in our Central Plains? Are there Mei, Qingcheng, Wudong Kunlun for demonic sects, and West Kunlun old demons? Were those things?" Prince Jiao Li sneered and said, "The number one sect in Central Plains is obviously the Luo Fu immortal sect with tens of thousands of disciples. They're much more powerful than Mao Mountain and Mei Mountain. If you're from a Luo Fu sect, you can distinguish them based on your identity as a Luo Fu disciple. However, although the Purple Cloud Palace's disciples aren't as powerful as the Luo Fu sect, they're 10 times more powerful. I'm afraid even the Luo Fu sect master won't give them face. As for the unorthodox sects in Central Plains, there's the He Mountain sect, Pai sect, and Miaojiang witchcraft sect. They're all famous diabolism masters. They're famous throughout the four seas. If not for the protection of the Purple Cloud Palace in East Sea, I wouldn't even dare to say their names." Chenong sighed and said, "They're indeed diabolism masters. These diabolism masters were people that Chunong could kill with just a breath. Luo Fu was just an unorthodox sect. Of course, compared to the dozen or so second-generation disciples in Amei, Luo Fu, which had tens of thousands of disciples, was indeed more like the mystic door orthodox sects, making all the orthodox sects feel inferior. At this point, Chunong didn't dare to ask any more questions. If he continued asking, he might accidentally say something like spiritual immortal realm or pure land of ultimate bliss, and he would be scolded by this knowledgeable Prince Jiao Li for being ignorant and not knowing about the heavenly court holy land and void hometown. If he said something like Huayin and Pure Land sects, Daxiong Zen Master, and Venerable Jew from the Mahayana sects, he would be refuted with White Lotus Holy Sect and Mithriya Supreme Sect. As he said this, Yang Li gradually realized that he had nowhere to go. The passage of the divine sand was behind the tower where Chunong was. He mustered up the courage to greet Chunong and said, "Disciple of the Purple Cloud Palace, Wei Rong greets you, immortal." Chunong looked at him and smiled. "Wei Rong? You Wei Rong, right?" This made Yang Li feel like he was about to be annihilated. He was terrified. However, Chunong smiled and said, "Don't panic. I know you are Yang Li, the disciple of Cui Hake, Ling Shuzi. Because of Lu Rongbua, you changed your name to Wei Rong and became a servant in the Purple Cloud Palace. Lu Rongbua is your lover. When she ascended, she was trapped by Sanfeng as a baby and forced to be a slave in the Purple Cloud Palace. This time, Fong Sanfeng offended me. She and her sister were supposed to live in the Purple Cloud Palace for 30 years, but they dug their own graves and provoked me. This is what they deserve." Lu Rongbua's grandfather, Immortal Ji Lu, predicted that after 30 years, a second-generation disciple of Amei would come to save you. At that time, Fong Sanfeng will be punished, and the other two girls will not have a good ending. Chunong's words made Yang Li feel relieved. He kowtowed and said, "Thank you for your guidance, immortal." Chunong waved his hand, and an invisible true power lifted him up and said, "Slow down, slow down." This was the original fate, but Fong Sanfeng was greedy, blinded by greed, and became my enemy. Why would I let her have another 30 years? Let me ask you, do you want to be the master of the Purple Cloud Palace? Yang Li was shocked. He quickly shook his head and said, "I only want to save Rongbua. I don't dare to think about it. The Purple Cloud Palace is not my fortune. Please don't joke with me." Chunong nodded and said, "If you really want to, I don't dare to help you. If you offend the Purple Cloud True Lord and attract the evil guests of Amei, not only will the Purple Cloud Palace be destroyed, but you will also be taken to the mountain and become the third-generation disciple of the Mystic Door. But I can't let Fong Sanfeng have it easy. She kept you as slaves for 20 years. I want her to be your slave for 30 years. Only then can I vent my anger." Without waiting for Yang Li to say anything, Meng Qi pointed at the sword ray and wrapped him up. Chapter 445. The disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace finally regained their senses and dared to sneak into the tunnel. They shouted at Chunong, "Where did you come from? You are so arrogant. Do you really think that the Purple Cloud Palace has no one to back you up? You barged in without asking for forgiveness. That's fine. How dare you kill Wu Pan? Do you know how much you have sinned and how much trouble you have gotten yourself into? It's fine that you gave up your life. If you dare to cause trouble again, your soul will be suppressed by the eye of the sea for hundreds of years. In the future, you will be reincarnated as an animal." Why would Chunong listen to his nonsense? Although he knew that the old man was trying to lure him into the Divine Sand Passage and use the Divine Sand Array to ambush him, he knew that Chunong was very capable. Seeing that he was being noisy, he used the Milky Way's arcane power to draw out a strand of chi from his voice. He used the art of victory loathing to control his body and kill everyone around him. Then he went straight into the Divine Sand Array. At this moment, screams could be heard in the tunnel. Yang Li, who was wrapped in Chunong's sword ray, heard the screams and murmured, "This is senior brother Su Fong. This is junior sister Zhao. This is Deacon Huang." Every time he said a name, his face turned paler. He was moved by the ruthlessness of this senior. Chunong Prince Jiao Li was still angry and sad. he said softly. "He is seeking his own death. How reckless!" Suddenly, he shut his mouth in fear and did not dare to speak anymore. Ling Sha was curious and asked him softly, "Why did you stop talking?" Prince Jiao Li was silent for a while and said, "The scream just now belonged to a deacon in the palace that I know. He is very respected in front of Aunt Dong Xiao and is very powerful." Ling Sha thought for a long time and remembered that the voice should be Deacon Huang that Yang Li mentioned. Before Chenong could reach him, he was already killed. Chun Ang's ability to kill a group of Purple Cloud Palace disciples in the array without even moving his hand or his sword had clearly frightened him. Chun Ang's status had also changed from an ignorant thief to a figure like the patriarch of the evil path who had invaded the Purple Cloud Palace and a figure like a giant of the evil path. He was on the same level as the sect leader of the Mount He cult, who was famous. Prince Jiaoli knew what was good for him. Seeing this, he quickly gave up and stopped teasing the great ancestor lest he get annoyed and kill him with one slash. After manipulating that foul-mouthed person to kill all the disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace who wanted to harm him in the passageway, there was no one to control the great divine sand formation. Chun Ong released the magic power of the heavenly river, which stretched for 3,000 miles and froze the entire passageway of the divine sand. Finally, when Chun Ong raised his eyebrows, the guy he hated pulled out his sword and killed himself. At this moment, everyone in the Purple Cloud Palace was shocked. Hui Zhu and the two phoenixes were shocked. Chu Feng was cultivating in seclusion. The golden bearded slave was nowhere to be found, and the three phoenixes and Dong Xiao went out to attack Chenong. Everyone else rushed out of their palaces. The two phoenixes shouted, "What is going on?" A disciple stepped forward to add fuel to the fire and told the story. In their story, Chun Ong was like a demon who coveted the Purple Cloud Palace, the Pearl Palace, and the Celestial Palace. He broke into the palace and killed them, not mentioning the fact that the three phoenixes wanted to harm him. Only Hui Zhu secretly called the most honest disciple, Long Lizi, over and found out the truth. The two phoenixes were furious. "Do you really think there is no one in the Purple Cloud Palace?" They wanted to pack up their treasures and fight with Chenong. However, Hui Zhu stopped them and said, "Put down your flying sword first. Let me go up and greet that fellow Taoist and ask about the truth." The two phoenixes respected this kind mother the most, so they could not do anything when she stopped them. She said, "Mother, they have come a fight. How can we be kind?" But seeing that Hui Zhu was persistent, she had no choice but to put away her flying sword. The 3,000 miles long passage of divine sand was created by Chu Feng using the Earth Palace golden stamp that ancestor Lianshan had hidden. She used 10,000 years old iron, coral, gold, and jade to refine the divine sand at the bottom of the sea to build the 3,000 miles long passage of divine sand. She set up countless spells and restrictions and connected it to the eye of the sea to form a great formation, with the three ladies of the Purple Cloud Palace constantly replenishing it. It was very powerful. If ordinary cultivators entered, they would be killed by the formation and the invisible divine sand, turning into ashes in an instant. But to Chenong, this divine sand formation was too crude. The 49 formation tools inside were of the unorthodox level. Although they were powerful, they did not conform to the laws of heaven and earth. They were much weaker than the yin and yang dust formation of Mei. But the materials used to refine the invisible divine sand were ordinary, and the magical techniques and restrictions were also ordinary. The invisible divine sand was very powerful to the people of the unorthodox sects, and even the juniors of the righteous path, but against someone at Chun Ang's level, it would be completely restrained. Under Chun Ang's feet, he could see the entire array in just a short while. It was laughable that the Purple Cloud Palace still relied on this array. But now, Chun Ong was sitting cross-legged on the 49 jade pillars in the array. The divine sand was rolling and eroding under his feet, but it couldn't do anything to him. The three people in the sword gleam saw it, but the other two did not know how powerful it was. Only Yang Li did not know all the key points, but he had been in the passage of the divine sand for 20 years and knew how scary this formation was. When he saw Chun Ong using the invisible divine sand to wash his feet, he shouted, "Could it be the real bodies of the three celestials of Amay?" Third princess heard him and said proudly, "My master is a rogue cultivator of the Central Plains. Although he is also from the orthodox mystic door, he was not born in Amay." Chun Ong looked at the entire formation and said with a smile, "Chu Feng really thinks she's smart. This formation of hers can only block those whose mana is weaker than hers. If the mana is 10 times stronger than hers, it will not be able to stop them. Instead, it will be taken advantage of." He then said, "This formation is crude. Let me fix it." Xian immediately stood up and shouted, "How can there be no water when there is sand?" After saying that, the sword gleam behind his head did not move, but released the mana of the Milky Way that was getting stronger and stronger. It turned into a headless Milky Way and flooded the entire passage of the divine sand. Hui Zhu was about to step into the passage, but she was forced out by the Milky Way. He had been in the sea for a few months, and the mana of the Milky Way had refined a lot of Tiani water. When it was released, it was like a torrential river of water. With the wonders of the mana of the Milky Way, it meandered on the passage of the divine sand. The mighty mana flowed and eroded, and gradually seeped into the key points of the divine sand formation, controlling the formation. In just a few breaths, the entire formation that Chu Feng had painstakingly built was dismantled. Hui Zhu, Air Feng, Yang Li, and the others were dumbfounded. Hui Zhu, Air Feng, Yang Li, and the others were dumbfounded and in disbelief. Although there's only the invisible divine sand, and I can't demonstrate many powerful formations, I happen to have a formation that is the true teachings of the Milky Way formation. I only need water and sand to set it up, and it is the most suitable for this situation. The Purple Cloud Palace wants to refine me, so let me set up this formation and trap her entire palace. I will slowly refine it for you to see." Chun Ong laughed out loud. The yellow river of 9 bends is 10,000 miles of sand, and the waves and wind come from the ends of the world. Now, let's go straight to the Milky Way, to the House of Altair and Jinu. This was the yellow river of 9 bends formation.